We expect it to be a war. We expect to go in and be physical and get our dub.
Our mindset, we losing wasn't an option. There was no way we was finna fly all the way up here and lose. Like,
this is why you play football right here. You know, big rival week in the playoffs.
Hello, welcome back to Division I Rejects. We're back for D1R 218. I'm your host, Cobe Manzo. Tonight, I have a very strong feeling this will be the longest episode in all of Division I Rejects history. That is for very good reason. I've got three great guests outside of the usual colorful cast and crew that will be joining me tonight on the show. We're starting things off with a man who has a very incredible name, if I do say so myself. Cobe Williams from Harding, the center, a great part of that front five, that offensive group from the Bisons, who has been absolutely dominant. He will join us here in a little bit, talk about Harding and their success. And then later on from the Division III realm, Mychal Stillwell from LaGrange College in Georgia. The Panthers certainly on a roll right now. We'll talk with him about their playoff success moving forward. And then Braeden Orlandi from Carroll College, a big-time playmaker defensively, had a huge interception, the defensive player of the year in the west side of the Frontier Conference out there, one of the best, if not the best, conference in all of NAIA football. So all of those guys will join me tonight. Some great guests for D1R 218 here on the night of November 24th. We got playoff football to talk about, and that's where this gets really interesting. I know typically throughout the course of the regular season, we'll highlight some games that are maybe some of our more marquee games and get into some where we kind of skip over them. Not today. We're talking all playoff football. Every game, we've got a breakdown of all of them. In Division II, we're ready for the Sweet 16 now, moving forward to this next weekend. We have a third meeting this coming weekend of two teams that will play each other, like I said, for the third time in 2025. A lot of teams getting their first ever playoff win, their first ever time advancing to the second round of the playoffs. We get to celebrate a lot of those teams today. And potentially, in Division II, the craziest playoff finish I've ever seen in small school football this weekend with Benedict, their win over Wingate. So we'll take a look at that video and a lot more when it comes to D2 football. Drew Carpenter will join me in Division III. Now, everyone's taking the field this weekend. Had a lot of buys in the first round. Seth Howard joins me to talk all about the D3 landscape tonight, and a great part of the show. And in the NAIA, there might have not been any technical upsets in the four games that were played this past weekend of NAIA football. We had some fantastic football games, a lot of great ball to talk about. This week's matchups have been revealed, so Matt Schwarzler and I will go through and break down all of that. But also, a couple shout outs. See the shelf behind me here. First of all, got to shout out Woody. Check out there it is. Check out Woody from Northwood. Shout out to Timberwolves. They did not fare incredibly well this weekend. We'll talk about it. Unfortunate. But Woody is a dub regardless. And then a very recent pickup after our small school Saturday show in Fenway Park. Look at that. Philly Fanatic, dude. Isn't that sweet? What a cool addition to the shelf back here. He'll be a mainstay in the studio, of course, next to our incredible helmet from our great friends over at Vices, who hooked us up with this very recently. This is always going to be a mainstay on the show. Shout out to Vices. They make the best and the safest helmet in all of college football. Check the stats. But tonight, we've got a great episode for you guys. Excited to get into all this playoff football. Thank you for tuning in. And like I said, this is going to be a very long episode. It'll be divided up by timestamps at least a little bit. But as always, we got the graphics at the bottom that'll kind of tell you what matchup we're talking about at that time. So fast forward, get to your team, your matchup, or hear me out. Just listen. Just put this thing on play, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, watch us on YouTube. Just subscribe, please, on any platform. But just listen. Learn something about a different team in small school football you didn't know about before this episode. That would be the best thing ever. Thank you so much for lending us your eyes and or your ears whenever you're listening to this. Thank you so much for tuning in to D1 Rejects. Let's get into this thing with our first guest conversation, Cobe on Cobe. Joining the show tonight, the man at the center of the prolific offense that is the Harding Bisons. And we've had the quarterback on from Harding before. I mean, legit the center of this offense, a guy who has a phenomenal name, if I do say so myself. It's the sophomore anchor on the offensive line, Cobe Williams. Cobe, what's up, dude?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Excited to get you on here. And like I had told you, we've had some of the skill guys on from this Bison's attack, and we could talk about them a lot, I'm sure, and people at nauseum should be talking about them across the country. But underrepresentation of the offensive line will not go unnoticed on this particular program. Excited to get you on here. That was a big time win on Saturday, man. It was fun to watch. Very fun to watch. And this team is dominant. I think that's the very easy way to say it. I've known that. This is not the first Harding game that I've had the chance to sit down and actually watch from kind of beginning to end, or let's say in this case, beginning to like fourth quarter, if I'm being honest with you. I turned that thing off because y'all were doing your thing. But I know that going into it, I'm very often reminded as soon as I turn the game on Saturday of what this team was doing. What stood out to you about this team's performance this week, man?
Just how physical we were, because our goal is always to be the most physical and most dominant. But this week we really imposed that and made sure that to make it known for the rest of the playoffs that we're bringing that every week.
And you guys have shown that. And it's one thing, again, to do it against a team that maybe isn't known or isn't built upon that kind of identity. There are some really physical and some tough teams inside of the GAC. There's also a couple that we expect you guys kind of to roll out, and I can say that, of course, that we expect you guys to roll out and kind of, do your thing against. But when we get into this playoff football in what used to be Super Region 3 and now Super Region 4, which is the toughest kind of gauntlet right now in all of Division II football, you've done it against teams that have built their foundation around that. Pittsburgh State last year, we saw how that one panned out. That was a head scratcher kind of game. This week, Northwest Missouri, a team that is built upon just dominating the line of scrimmage. You guys have been able to do that better than most in the country. You came out of the game very briefly. Excited to see you back in there. Hopefully we're doing all right down there. How excited were the guys to see you right back in the huddle immediately after?
We were good to go, ready to go. They knew what was going on, so we locked in. Let's go.
Good, dude. I love it. And, people love to talk about how you dominate the time of possession. That's one of the fun talking points about the good option teams, because you guys never leave the field. And the first point that they say is, well, the defense is out there the entire game. They got to be exhausted. That means the offense is out there the entire time, too. How do you guys condition and prepare for that? And how does depth at some key positions really supplement that effort?
Our coach, our strength coach, Coach Greg, he does a great job every week, week in and week out. On Sundays, we usually go in, get a lift in, and we condition. And he really pushes us no matter who we played or what was going on, tries to push us to get better in that conditioning. And really, from week one, we have a playoff mindset with that conditioning of going in these long games. And I think it also helps that, and earlier on in the season, we can beat people by a lot to get other people in. Okay. Also conserve our starters. So it all helps because it builds our depth in the chart. If someone goes down, the next person ready to go because they have plenty of snaps, or just getting people to rest, like I said before.
That's important. You got to have all the bullets in the gun, so to speak, especially when it comes to these big-time games that we're talking about in playoff football. And sometimes it feels like these option teams have a bad rap of being these very vanilla, fundamental, basic type teams. And all those things are true. It's a very quote-unquote simple offensive attack. No one's able to stop it. And I think something that's left or lost in that process is you guys play with moxie, man. And I was telling you before we got going, I just immediately, that first series, that first possession, Jay gets the little end around, first down. He gets up, give me a little shoulder shimmy, a little first down type action. It feels like this group feeds off of that. Is that on the money? What is the swag and moxie level of this offensive group in particular?
We just love each other and we have fun playing out there. So it's easy just to go out there and be yourself and celebrate whatever. We try not to get too crazy with it, but it gets fun to just be out there with your brother.
And from the outside perspective, it seems like you guys spend a lot of time with each other, right? Obviously, in season, every team in America, you're spending time with each other because you're in the facility, you're at, whether it's in the weight room or in the film room or on the field, whatever it is. But in the off season, this Harding group feels closer than most. What can you tell me about that bond that's created every off season? I've seen the camping trip photos and some other really sweet stuff that you guys do, but those bonds certainly seem to be made in the summer months just as much as they are in the fall.
Whenever we're together, we're around. It's not forced on us by the coaches or anything. It's once you get there, you just want to be a part of it. And people are bringing you up, and the older guys do such a good job of trying to involve you as soon as you get there as a freshman. So it just builds that brotherhood.
100%.
And so many friends and meet so many good people.
And that swagger and moxie that I talk about, it's coming from all the right places. Having fun, playing with dudes that you love playing football with, dudes that you genuinely love and appreciate, as opposed to this is a me. This is a collective moxie, a collective kind of energy that you bring out there to the field. And one thing is, As soon as you see the Bisons go up a couple scores, man, you're like, uh-oh. This could get bad quick. How does that start to snowball in a very good way for this offense when you guys get ahead and you can play your brand of football and really dominate?
We just like to – we feel the momentum, and we kind of say keep our foot on their necks and keep going and kill the game and get it over with. We love to play with each other, and, we want to play another week, so we want to make sure that.
And you guys, obviously with the style of play, it hasn't happened much this year. We've seen it at a couple points. I know, just a year ago or previously, the game against Washita, I believe it was last year, where you get maybe a little bit behind and you have to start to resort to some different style, so to speak, because you can't run your prototypical grind down the field, 8-minute possession and go score. How do you feel you guys have grown in that aspect? And obviously we haven't really had to see that in recent history. That could change going forward, but how do you feel you guys have grown in that way and started to maybe expand on that, having been tested in somewhat recent history in that regard?
I think we just, still stay down to our basics. We didn't really change anything. Everyone loses it once in a while, so we just try to trust that we're going to get back on the right track and get going.
Yep. And that offensive backfield, we could probably, again, talk about all the guys that make that up, and we have, on this program. But Andrew Miller, he's the workhorse that really makes this thing go from the ground point. 33 carries for him. He's carried the load of this offense, and he's done it in a very explosive way. That's not something you typically come to associate with the position that he's inside of this offense. He's a guy that should, emphasis on should, get you 3 or 4 and continue to help you move the sticks. He turns 3 or 4 into 30 or 40, and he's getting to the next, second or third level and getting out these chunk plays. Obviously, you and the guys up front have a very big piece, and I'm sure he'd be the first one to tell me the same thing, and that you guys deserve the credit for that. But what has that tandem, how has it grown and evolved with you and that front group, and, of course, him keeping the legs churning and keeping those things going? How have you seen those explosive plays develop?
He's a beast. We don't like to take credit for him. He's a beast. Like, running 22 miles per hour at 215 is just something not a lot of people can do. And he's very humble, and he always gives us our shout out, so we just try to go harder for him. We love that guy.
I love that, man. And as a running back myself that had very little patience, like you hear about guys, like people love to talk about, like Le'Veon. Le'Veon was a dude who had a ton of patience. He could sit there and just sit still and wait for a hole to develop. That's not how this offense works. That's not how I worked when I ran the ball. I'd be, running into the back of an offensive line before I stood and stopped still, because it would take me a minute to get going again. Do you like having a back in a system like that behind you where it is go, go, go? And does it make, obviously, your assignment from the offensive line perspective, it's not going to be incredibly complex, depending on the front, because you know exactly where you're going each and every play? Is that keep the water less muddy, so to speak, and simplify this and keep everything in motion?
Yes, sir. When I talk to Andrew, he always tells me he's going to find green grass and grow, so it does. It does make it more simple. You ain't got to worry about 30 cuts or trying to figure out where the defensive line is going to read to. It's just get off the ball, get him moved, and he's going to hit the hole.
Yeah, 100%. We've seen that, man. No breaks in the D2 playoffs, though. You got Pitt State coming to town this weekend, a team that you bounced from the dance a year ago in very dramatic fashion. That was, again, a ridiculous game to watch. This matchup, always one of the most physical, and I personally am glad the MIAA has followed you over to the new Super Region 4, because we get this matchup again in 2025. What can you tell me about that squad and what you expect on Saturday?
We expect it to be a war, and we expect to go in and be physical and get our dub. We love to play, but we going to bring it. We're ready to go.
Short and sweet, dude. That's all you need. That's what this team is about, right? I mean, I love the quote from Coach Simmons. I believe it was maybe 2 years ago now, and I don't want to misquote it, but basically he had said, like, running the flex bone's pretty good if you like winning. I think that was pretty much verbatim. That was kind of what it was. What is it? You're obviously a few years into this program now. You're number 3, correct? Because you're a redshirt. What was it about this program that was really enticing for you to get involved with it, and how do you feel you've grown as a football player, but also as a man in those 3 years? Because I know that's one of the selling points of this program, that they developed you guys certainly on and off the field.
I think the culture of it being faith-based and then having such a strong brotherhood just forces you to grow, because you're going to do so much you're not used to doing. You're going to have to change your ways, or you're not going to make it here. Like, it's serious, and if you really want to be a man and grow up, it's a great place to be because there's so many people around you pulling for you, but there's also people who are trying to push you into the right direction.
Seems to be all of the good things about college athletics in terms of the developing of the individuals, and that seems to be the general consensus coming out of Cersei, right? That all of those qualities are still intact there in a day and age where a lot of programs catch flack for not adhering to those values. You guys certainly seem to be carrying the torch, so to speak, of the traditional old school college football and that group of guys that is just through battle with each other, right? I love it. Sweet, man. Cobe, best of luck, brother. I appreciate you joining me on the show. That's all I got for you. Anything else we need to know about this team?
No, sir. You ready to go?
I believe it, man. You're exciting to watch. Thank you, man. Have another good week. I'm excited to continue watching this Bison team, brother.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
16 games in Division II football. We're going to talk about every single one of them to start the playoffs. Some more than others. We had a couple blowouts in the first round of the D2 football playoffs, Drew, but we also had some really freaking good games. So before we get maybe to some of those really good games, let's talk about one of the blowouts. Kutztown, this Bears team, this is a conference in the PSAC that has been full of turmoil in 2025. This Kutztown team has been the one constant for this league. They have been dominant every stretch of the way. Shutout in round one, 52-0 over a Bentley team that admittedly did not have a ton of expectations. They got the automatic bid after that win over Assumption in the NE10 to make their way into the dance, dude. But 52-0 in the playoffs, I don't care who you are. That's insane.
Yeah, not only 52-0, but 500 yards of total offense, Cobe.
Yeah.
They were scoring points. They were running the ball effectively, 200 on the ground, 300 through the air. You do feel bad for a Bentley team to where it's like, I'm sure there was so much confidence and so much like, yeah, we made it and we had to run into the wall. But this is more about the Kutztown team, to be honest with you, right? Like 52-0 in the playoffs, like 52 points is impressive. 0 in the playoffs is even more impressive,
Correct.
in my opinion.
Yeah, no, they did it in every facet, too. This is a Golden Bears team that honestly just seems to get better every single week. And Judd Novak didn't play the entirety of this one because obviously the nature of this got a little bit out of hand, but he has shown complete and utter control of this offense. He's probably one of the more exciting players in this part of the region and the bracket that we can watch inside of D2 football. He does it all for them on the ground, through the air, and a lot of other things that they do really well. And like I said, there's been a lot of turmoil. Slippery Rock, a noticeable absence this year. Teams like Cal and others that have been upset through multiple points. Kutztown has been strong throughout the entirety of it, man. There's a lot of guys that showed up for this team and that continue to show up. This defense is absolutely stifling, and there were a lot of different guys that get in on the action, especially a game like this. For this Kutztown team, you go through the box score, there's a ridiculous number of people that made big-time performances, but Lee Coleman is one that you got to shout out. Big-time fumble recovery and interception, along with the PBU in the same game, so that's a big-time performance from him for this Kutztown defense, but there were a lot of them for that Kutztown team. Let's keep things going, though. The other side of the NE10, and a team that actually started their season with Kutztown, Drew, that's the Greyhounds from Assumption. They get over the hump, and what I mean by that is, of course, this NE10 team, I guess any NE10 team in general, the general consensus has been, much like you, Indy, okay, you do very well inside of your conference. Can you perform well on the national stage? And Assumption, they got over that hump. Big-time playoff win over a PSAC foe in IUP, and they got it done, Drew, without their starting QB. They lost him versus Bentley in that NE10 championship game. So to do this with a backup quarterback in Dom Santiago, he steps up, gets the road win for the Hounds, dude.
Not only that, but Dom Santiago also ran the ball very effectively. You look at 12 carries, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns. Very good as far as for a quarterback, right? Having that dual threat. We always talked about Cobe before the year, like, especially in today's college offenses, anytime you're able to have a dual threat quarterback, it just makes it so much harder to practice and prep for. Not only that, but this guy wasn't even have a lot of film on him, and it makes it even harder, right? So very good for him, like seizing the moment for the Assumption Greyhounds. And I totally agree with you. Like we talked about, like a lot of teams in this area, whether especially like IUP, like they're usually like a solid program, and then you have a team like an Assumption where it's like, all right, now it's time for a big test right here. What are you going to do? And not only did they perform, But you talk about a team that came back in the second half. You're down 10-20 at half, and you come
Yeah.
down and go 13 points in a shutout in the second half. Awesome win for them.
Big time defensive performances for this Greyhound team, man. Esteban Ortiz, 4 PBUs on the day. That's a stat that, I mean, from that position, that does not get recorded a whole lot. 4 PBUs in one game is pretty ridiculous.
Sometimes the best coverages are the ones where they don't throw it to you. They were obviously trying him.
They kept going back to it. It was not working.
4 PBUs is very impressive, and there should be nothing no other reason to throw that way if we're just like, hey, he's just going to break it up every time. So,
yeah, the defense was a very big part of this. The turnover chain, we'll check out for this Assumption team. That is freaking incredible. Love that schools are still rocking that in the Big 2-5. We have kind of seen a dip in the usage of turnover chains. We'll talk about Pitt State has like a throne, Drew, at the D2 level. It's probably one of the cooler ones. But I still love that a turnover chain is still making an appearance in 2025, because I think that's a tradition that does not need to be lost to time.
Agreed. I
now,
think
this Assumption team, this is a team that we talk about defensively. They shut out IUP in the second half. That's a statement performance that obviously helped them get this W. Their season started at Kutztown. Will it end at KU as well? Is now the big question for this Assumption team moving forward. It was 51-14 to start the year against the Bears. Obviously, I think for the greater majority of D2 football people, I'm expecting that to be a closer margin. I think Kutztown is still very heavily favored in that matchup, but I don't really know if we'll see a 51-14 type performance, especially if the defense is going to show up how they did here on Saturday.
Cobe, Assumption's playing some of their best ball right now, right? If we were to take week 1 out of there for a lot of these teams that, sometimes week 1 you're still trying to figure out exactly who you are. A lot of coaches will always say,
sure,
when's the biggest growth for a program between week 1 and week 2? So Assumption's got to be feeling like, all right, scratch everything we did that first week. We're going in fresh. And if you want to be in these type of games, then you're going to have to beat the Kutztowns of the world, right? I'm not saying they're going to do that or anything like that, but I'm just saying from an Assumption perspective, you got to just throw that first game out and be like, we're playing with house money, right?
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. And then for Kutztown, this is one of those things where same thing. You throw that first game out and you're like, they're not the same team as they were, but we're also not the same team as we were week 1.
Yeah. And this next matchup had a lot of firsts, I think, for both sides. Talking about Frostburg, they step up in their win over Johnson C. Smith. And when I say a lot of firsts, Drew, we're talking about an FSU team making their first ever appearance in the tournament. They moved up from Division III in 2019. But on the other side, Johnson C. Smith, they, of course, have that CIAA title under their belt after a big win over Virginia Union. And that was their first conference title since 1969 with a school record 10 wins. This was kind of a Cinderella season of history and firsts for this Johnson C. Smith Golden Bull team. They ran into a buzzsaw that was Frostburg State. And let me be the first to tell you, I was not familiar with the game of Frostburg State. Knew they were having a phenomenal year inside of the MEC, which as a conference is kind of having maybe a little bit of a down year. We have seen in recent history teams like Charleston kind of dominate. But you look at what they did, obviously in conference, they come into this one 10-2, but also what they did out of conference with big wins against Shepherd and also a talented California PA team on the road. They lost by 5 points, a very competitive playoff type caliber team. And they've been kind of up and down. I go back to their senior day performance just a couple weeks ago against West Virginia State, a team that, to be honest with you, has kind of struggled in recent history. They win that one by 5 on senior day at home. And so that leaves with a couple question marks. Now, really statement win over Fairmont heading into the playoffs. Obviously, it panned out because this Frostburg team was, I think, really just in control of this one. They went to halftime up 14-0. Time possession battle, they win it about 33 minutes to 27. A lot of the different metrics they did a good job of, but going into halftime, you're up 14-0, and Johnson C. Smith gets one score, not really enough for this Golden Bowl team. Unfortunately, their Cinderella-type season comes to an end, and they were left with only 50 yards on the ground.
They didn't run into a buzzsaw. They ran into Christian Taylor. He had 4 sacks on the day and a forced fumble.
Correct.
You talk about a guy putting his team not necessarily on his back, but like hey, I'm going to go help you win this game here, right? And yes, I absolutely agree with you. When you end up with 50 net rushing yards just because of all the sack yards computed to 188 like coaches always say, and I'm not trying to do with like the cliche sayings tonight, but run the ball, stop the run, right? And you're
Correct.
going to win the football game. That's what happened.
If
So
we're going off metrics, how about 1 of 10 on third down for JCSU? That feels pretty
yeah,
good, along with 2 interceptions for this Frostburg defense, dude. All
yeah,
phases.
just domination, right?
Yeah.
And that they
This
didn't
game could
necessarily,
have.
and I don't even think they necessarily played their best game. Like Jordan Brooks, he was only 9 of 23. That's not the most efficient. He had no touchdown passes, 1 interception, right? Like Frostburg didn't necessarily play their best game, and that should be like not necessarily fulfilling, but like good going forward, knowing that hey, we can win and we can win ugly. But now let's
Correct.
keep playing our best game too.
Yeah, Jordan Brooks, only a redshirt sophomore. That 179 yards, his third lowest, I do believe, on the entire season. We've seen him go off and have some of his best games against quality opponents. You go back to that Charleston game where he threw for almost 400 yards and 4 touchdowns against a Charleston team that has kind of run the MEC in recent history. So this Frostburg team, under a young signal caller, relatively speaking, that redshirt sophomore in Brooks, they have shown a lot of promise, and now we're to the point where we're going to figure it out because, everyone at this point, we're talking about not a lot of teams left in the dance. So we're talking about some really good football moving forward, but they're playing some of their best ball right now, to your point. And one of those teams that beat Frostburg during the regular season and out of conference fro is Cal PA, the Vulcans. They get the job done, take down the Panthers of Virginia Union, who also fell in that CIAA championship to Johnson C. Smith. 27-24 for Cal. 2 touchdowns off 2 early turnovers. That sets the tone for this Vulcans attack as they move forward. We talked about Purcell under center, I think, a little bit, but this, to me, seems to be a team that's stabilized. We talk about the turnover and the turmoil in the PSAC. Cal PA was not exempt from that. There were a couple games that had a lot of question marks on this Vulcans schedule and resume throughout the course of the regular season. But again, how are you playing into November? What does your playoff resume look like? Because a lot of people like to say, again, we're talking cliches, throw everything else out the window. Cal PA, they're certainly flushing some of those losses. They're playing some of their best ball right now. Those Edinburgh, that loss was a tough one. IUP with a 3-point win over Clarion in between. There was a difficult stretch right there for that Vulcans team. They've come out on top and are playing some really good ball. And the biggest number that stands out to me from this game, Curtis Allen, a front runner for the Harlan Hill, the running back for Virginia Union, 128 yards for him on the day, Drew. That is the second lowest performance from him on the entire year. And the only one that is quote-unquote worse in terms of net yardage was 108 yards against that Johnson C. Smith team. He had 4 touchdowns in that game, dude. That's wild. That is wild.
It's a shame his season had come to an end.
Correct.
He really was balling. Like we had been talking about him, whether it was in our group chat or just like looking at stats and everything like that. We're like, how many yards did this guy have today?
Yeah.
So
cut the tape on
really,
it. It's like any play
really,
you can just bust it.
really, yeah, really impressive. And honestly, Cobe, like when we're looking at the box score of this game, Virginia Union makes a field goal at 10.5, and then Cal PA scores with 9:53 left in the fourth quarter. So that whole third quarter was a defensive battle.
Yeah.
Oh, and then guess what? They just returned a kick right after the touchdown. So with 9:41 left, it was 27-24. So that whole second half was theoretically a defensive battle, right? Like it was just like, guys going after it, right? Like there's only one offensive touchdown in that second half. That's just a good, like, hard-nosed November football game.
Absolutely. Purcell did it on the ground very well. 2 touchdowns running the ball. We've seen that at multiple points throughout this season for him, a big-time addition for this Cal PA offense. You talk about go back to Allen and the numbers that he was averaging over 200 on the ground per game coming into this one. This is only the second time this year that he didn't have multiple scores in a game.
Wow.
I mean, dude. Wow. That is silly. And, of course, to me, you got to give flowers to this Virginia Union team for a lot of different reasons, but I think the biggest of which, 4 consecutive trips to the tournament. That is something that amongst Division II and amongst college football in general is very, very difficult to do, especially for a team that before that streak really has struggled to make it to the dance. And so what this coaching staff has done down there, especially when you lose top players, a guy like Jada Byers out of the backfield, the predecessor who kind of paved the way for Curtis Allen, this incredible season that we've seen from him. You lose guys like Byers, other talent across the board, and you had a lot of people on the outside looking in that said, hey, the expectation a lot lower for this Panthers team in 2025. Well, those folks were sadly disappointed because this team came right back to the dance, 4th year in a row, and they've represented very well. I think they've been a very good ambassador for the CIAA and the national stage, whether it is a close loss like this or a couple playoff wins that we saw just a year ago in the national tournament. But for the Vulcans, 4-0 on the year against nationally ranked opponents, dude. Love that stat.
Yeah, it means that when the moments are the biggest, they're going to show up, right? Like,
sure,
teams are going to, no matter the ranking, no matter who's hot, who's not playing well, who believes on the outside, who doesn't believe on the outside, the Vulcans are showing up no matter what. That's a credit to the coaching staff, credit to the guys also, like, not being afraid of the moment.
Talk about a game that was very back and forth. I'll tell you what, Valdosta State was probably my dark horse pick. Them and Mankato, of course, to really go and make some noise. Mankato very much still alive. Valdosta State very close to being in that same conversation. They draw the tall task of the 1 seed in the region, go on the road to Albany State. The Rams, they win this one 35-30 in a bit of a scoregami type matchup. But this one was incredibly back and forth for both these teams. And we've talked about it. This is a Valdosta team that was peaking at the right time. They really struggled early on in the year. The instability at the quarterback position and some other offensive skill, they figured it out when they got into Gulf South play. Rattle off wins against teams like West Alabama and Delta State and West Florida to close off the season. You're talking about playing your best football going into November football. And we saw that here from this Blazers team. They were leading by 3 heading into the final quarter, but ASU, they win the time possession battle 41 minutes to less than 19 for Valdosta, and they win by less than a touchdown, Drew. What?
Yeah, it's when people are going to look at like the records and just scoreboard watch, like how the hell did a 6-5 team make the playoffs?
Scoreboard
right?
watch, yeah, correct.
But Valdosta State, like we talked about, Cobe, we talked about them, I believe, like a couple weeks ago when we were at the Northwood Finley game, which is about how they were like kind of peaking at the right time. It's like a sleeper, and this game was exactly the reason why they were in it, right? Like 30-35 against a good Albany State team. Not only did they like come to play, but Albany State knew that they were going to have a good team on in their hands. So Albany State, what do they decide to do? I don't know. Run the ball, 266 net total yards. That's like, we all talk about just like, like, I don't know. It's like growing up, it was always like, let's pass. But like, as I've gotten older, the best offenses, when you're able to develop that play action pass off your run and you're just pounding down people's throats, is some of the best offense to watch. And they had 2 guys over 100 yards. Like, that's a huge day for the Rams.
It definitely is. The Rams, they advanced in the playoffs for the first time in 14 years. Not necessarily unprecedented territory, but certainly one that they have not seen in quite some time, and quite a couple different coaches in that time span as well. Now, they draw, again, a very tall task. It'll be the 3rd time the Rams play the Tigers from Benedict, who came out with probably the most ridiculous win out of the weekend. Benedict,
team of destiny style win.
Yeah, dude. That's certainly what it feels like. They walk off the 25-24 win on the road at Wingate after being down 24-0. This team, 24 unanswered points, and they do this for a walk-off win. And I'll pull up the video now, courtesy of HBCU Game Day on X. Shout out to them for capturing this because I can't pull the broadcast footage from the ESPN stuff. But to set the scene here, Drew, I think that's maybe important before we pull and take the video here. Statistically, it's going to go down as a really ridiculous pass, but we're going to watch it. It kind of is, kind of isn't. We'll take a look. But the Tigers, they scored with 3 minutes left in the game. They don't get the 2-point conversion. That would have actually made it a 3-point game, so we're talking a field goal to potentially tie this thing up and force OT. That's out of the question. Now you're down by 5. You got to score a touchdown. Wingate, they get the ball back, trying to grind out the clock. The defense for Benedict, that's the unsung hero in all of this. They got to stop the Bulldog attack and, of course, get the ball back in the hands of their offense. They do that. They get the ball back. Unfortunately, offense for Benedict, not really looking fantastic. 3 plays, don't get a whole lot, and now they're looking at a play. They're on like their own 19-yard line. They've got an entire football field ahead of them. This is the final play for sure. There's no tricking anyone. And this is how that play unfolds. As we see here, we've got a pitch out to the left and then a long lateral back to the right side of the field, taking it all the way down the sideline. Got one man to beat, bulldozes him into the end zone. That's Malik Mullins. The pass from Jackson Jensen will go down as an 86-yard pass. And then, of course, the celebration ensues for this, as Drew dubbed it, the team of destiny from Benedict College. This is an unreal performance. I can only imagine what the sideline felt like as Coach gets the Gatorade, or excuse me, the Powerade bath on the sideline. An incredible moment for this Benedict team. And, you know, a lot of times they earned this game. You talk about the performance they had in the second half, coming back down from being scoreless and scoring all those points unanswered. The defense stepping up in very timely situations against a talented Wingate squad on the road, Drew. And for it to end in that fashion is, nothing short of ridiculous. We have like the Minneapolis Miracle and stuff. We might need a nickname for this one.
No, that was more the Miami Miracle, if you remember when they did all the laterals. Yeah.
Correct. No, that's way better comp. Yes. Yeah, we need a good nickname for this, though. Not off the dome, but we can workshop it.
Yeah, I don't even know. The Wingate Woes or something.
That's not bad.
But no, that is as much as this is phenomenal by Benedict and having a undying belief.
Benedict totally different institution.
Oh, my bad. I said it wrong.
You're good.
The Tigers. Having an undying belief in the unknown right there, like just continuously going. But like, I do feel for the Wingate players. Like that's a tough way for some of them to end their career. But that's why we play the game, right? And that's why you play all 60 minutes, because it plays like that. Like rewatching that on your phone, you're just like, there's no way. You know what I mean? Like it's just one of those plays, and then to be up 24-0. And we just saw it yesterday with the Cowboys coming back from 21-0. Like the amount of everything that needs to go your way.
Yeah.
Good for the Tigers. They were able to, really respond.
This is the first postseason victory for Benedict in their history. You talk about what a way to cement yourself as a phenomenal team and one of the most celebrated and maybe decorated now teams in the history of that program. And they got a chance to go do something really special this week. But let's continue on this game. The way that it happened, Drew, and the guys that were a part of that final play, that's where it gets really interesting. So Trey Simmons, he was last season's quarterback turned wide receiver. He's the one that caught the ball originally. And so Jensen, he's the backup quarterback this year. He's the one that, as they say here, engineered Benedict's second half comeback, which is very much, very correctly said. And that's exactly what he did. So he throws the pass to last year's quarterback, Trey. He's the one who pitches it all the way back to Malik Mullins on the total opposite side of the field. And then Mullins races down the sideline. He's got one man to beat about 10 yards in and just goes straight bull rush into this guy, knocks him over, a little move into the end zone. So that's kind of how it evolved. It's really sweet to hear about those guys and their involvement in terms of how they set that up. Love the fact that it was a former QB making that throw. Maybe a little bit of a design there. Kudos to that staff potentially for setting that up.
Absolutely. You knew the kid could throw. You watched him last year.
Yes.
Like, absolutely.
These two teams, Drew, went a combined 6 of 32 on third down the entire day.
Yeah, it was ugly. Like it looks like an ugly game.
Yeah, it got a little ugly at times.
If you look at the film, like it didn't look like it was the best weather either. Like it seems like it was one of those games to where, like, all right, we're gonna have to scratch and claw, and Wingate was scratching and clawing. But like we said, credit to the Tigers for not giving up. Like that's a statement win. That's a
program defining.
Oh, absolutely. If you can come back from 24-0 against a good playoff team, you can think you can beat anybody when the score is 0-0.
Yeah, why not? Why the hell not us, right? And that's we talk about winning the 2 minutes going into half and out of half. Wingate goes into the half, believe it was 17-0 going into halftime, and then right after half, you got this game on, and you're like, okay, Benedict, you had a little break. Let's get things rolling in the right direction. No. Pick six, Bulldogs take it the other way. They go up 24-0. That could have been nail in the coffin for this team.
Absolutely.
That is a momentum shifter.
1,000%. You throw a pick six to start the half.
Correct. When you're already down multiple scores.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Now, their ensuing score, their first score of the game, actually came off of an interception that they had defensively that set up that scoring drive. So, again, very timely defense, especially in the second half. A lot of really exciting things if you're this Benedict squad. Now, I would argue the most exciting, of which is your opponent this week. They've got Albany State for the third time in 2025, Drew, and they're 0-2 against the Rams right now. The Rams, they beat them in the regular season. It was a pretty lopsided margin of victory. They also beat them in the SIAC championship game. Now, you get a crack at this Rams team one more time. You talk about a team that needs literally zero extra motivation heading into Saturday. The third time these two teams have met, and Benedict is yet to come out on top. An emotional roller coaster like this is a very easy way to keep the guys up heading into Thanksgiving weekend.
I'm not saying they will, and like I think Albany State's a really good team.
But you do this, we're talking legit team of destiny here.
Yeah, no, but like they better not get complacent at any point in this game, because if there's one thing the Tigers have shown, like we talked about, like it could be 50-0, and it doesn't seem like they're going to go away, right? So, and having that, like, man, like when that we've seen it so many times in the NFL, we've seen it in college football, or in like the Division I level, we've seen it to where like even in other sports, when one team has your number for so long, and you just now are just rolling, you have that like, yeah, we can get them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we know where we've messed up, and now we can get them. Like, that's the type of like team and season that it just feels like that the Tigers are going to have to like roll with, like throw
a
out
lot
the
of
last two
times
games.
coming off an emotional win like this, an emotional roller coaster, especially in the second half, that's where you sometimes fall into a trap game if your team's in the regular season. Maybe you've got an unsuspecting opponent coming up and you're riding this high off this game. That is very much not the case here. Like this is again, you need no extra get up for this. We're talking playoff football. There's no, I see
sure
no,
when they got their,
no hangover for this Benedict team, right?
No, I'm sure when they got the brackets, they were not necessarily ducking or overlooking Wingate, but they were like, hey, we get past Wingate, and obviously
we get another shot at this.
It takes care of business. We get another shot at it. You know what I mean?
100%.
Absolutely.
And then to keep this thing going, let's talk about the Argos, Drew. West Florida, they're moving on. Big-time win over a North Greenville team that gave this West Florida team a lot of trouble in the regular season. It was a much closer, much narrower margin of victory for this West Florida team, and I think that's what stands out immediately. This team is continuing to improve, and they're doing so into November, into playoff football, in a way to bounce back for this squad. I talked about Valdosta State earlier, of course. They upset the Argos to close out the regular season. This team has responded in a very, very big way, and I actually think it's great that for them maybe now, they didn't get the 1 seed in the region, but there's no more buys in D2 football. So I love for these guys that there's only 1 week. Like, let's get this taste out of our mouth, right? Let's get this terrible taste out of our mouth from that last game and get back on the field and go, like, hurt whoever the hell it is between the whistles in a very legal way. Let's go hurt someone on the other side of the ball, right? They don't have to wait 2 weeks for this. Love the fact they just get back out in the field and play. This is the first home playoff win for Coach Nobles as a head coach. Absolutely love that. Love what he's done with this program. We've had him on our program and our show. He's a great individual. And this defense, they held NGU to only 24 yards on the ground. Shout out Coach Mello and company. 5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles in every facet of the game. We could talk about Marcus Stokes and this high-flying offense ad nauseum, but the defense is what showed up and I think really impacted that margin of victory on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that you hit a nail in the coffin right there. This we just talked about it a couple of games ago. Run the ball, stop the run, 265 to 24. I don't know what math that is right off the top of my head. I'm messing around. But like 241 yards different, you're going to win a football game. That's just the reality. Like you're going to win the football game if you have 241 yards rushing more than the opponent. And I credit a guy like Jay Sharp. Jay Sharp, 13 yards on average per carry.
Nuts.
Like moving like Jahmyr Gibbs out there.
Okay.
But Marcus Stokes, right? Cade's been all over him all year, and he came to play. And so I think you're right about West Florida. You have a sour taste in your mouth. You should have beat Valdosta, at least in their minds. They should have.
Sure.
How do we bounce back? Well, we just take care of business week 1 in the playoffs.
And it definitely wasn't a wire-to-wire win either.
No, it was not.
We talk about,
it seems like two fighters feeling each other out in the first half.
Correct.
The better team took over in the second half.
That definitely seems to be the case. West Florida, their first 2 drives, the first of which actually started with a big-time kick return. And you're like, okay, this is how West Florida's going to start this game, an exclamation point. That gets called back. I believe it was a block in the back type penalty. That thing gets called back. There's 2 or 3 more penalties just on that series alone. It sputters out. They get the ball, next series. Okay, Stokes and company, let's get this thing go. Interception, first play. And you're like, whoa. Yeah. Is this how this is going to go? Is this how this is going to be? And obviously, they woke the hell up. They scored 43 on a talented North Greenville team, and they figured it the hell out. But early on, not very much the case. So West Florida very much able to go through some adversity now, can definitely consider themselves battle-tested, I think, if they weren't already going through what is still the small but very mighty conference of the Gulf South. But a lot of big things coming for this West Florida team, dude. And they, of course, will get Newberry, who took out, we talked about Kentucky State, and a lot of people have talked about Kentucky State recently. They're out of the dance now. I didn't know
who Kentucky State was until, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Newberry, though, they pick up the win over the Thoroughbreds, 45-24. The Wolves are going to round 2, and, of course, a lot of people are going to sit here and wonder, what would Delta State have done in this game if we had that matchup, and if Delta State had the chance to play Kentucky State, and if Delta State had beat Kentucky State, and if they got the matchup with Newberry? Notice there's a lot of ifs in that hypothetical right there. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of people in Gulf South territory that are wondering to themselves, man, what would the Statesmen have done? Right? It would have been great for Kentucky State to come out here and silence all those naysayers and be like, hey, we're still a quality football team, and they very much are in their own right. I'm not taking that away from them, but that was unfortunately not the result for this Kentucky State team. They got routed by Newberry. 45 points scored by the Wolves. That's the most the program has ever scored in a postseason game in their history.
Yeah, and it got close, right? It did towards the end of the third, beginning of the fourth. It was 31-24.
Yeah.
Kentucky State was trying to pull it back together, but the better team won. Newberry took care of business in the fourth quarter, right? Like that's a credit to the guys in their squad. There's a credit to their coaches, right? You're 10-1 on the year, 9-1 on the year, and you're just like, hey, like let's finish this game, right? Like we know we're supposed to be here. Let's finish this game. And you score 14, hold them to 0 in the fourth, and that's just what it ended up being. The fourth quarter, is where the game was won, in my opinion. But the turnover margin was also where the game was won, right? Like Kentucky State had 3 interceptions. That's very unfortunate. It's tough to win that way, right? To read Charpia, I think I'm saying that right, Charpia, he only had 1, right? So like 3-to-1 interception ratio right there. That, like, I made the joke, run the ball, stop the run. Well, turnover margin is also a huge cliche thing to win football games, and that's a huge part of it right here.
Yeah, and 204 pass attempts without an interception. That streak was snapped for him. The defensive lineman from Kentucky State picked him off. That is, it's an unfortunate one. But you talk about the Thoroughbreds. They scored the first 14 points of the second half thanks to that turnover and another. And that was a big-time turning point. They had a chance to come back out and get themselves into this game. You talked about the fourth quarter defense and how they held up for this Newberry team. Not only did they hold them to 0 points, Drew, this is a dominant performance in the fourth quarter. The Thoroughbreds had 1 first down and 17 total yards in the entire fourth quarter.
I just said, right, games are won and lost in the fourth quarter.
Correct.
Won and lost. We watched one yesterday as Lions fans. Games are won and lost in the fourth quarter. And that shouldn't be that should be for Newberry. Like, yeah, it took us to the fourth quarter. We kind of, slowed down in the third quarter, almost like how we talked about with Wingate. Maybe they got a little complacent at halftime, right? They were up, 31-10 at half, right? Kind of getting a little complacent. And then all of a sudden it was like, no. Let's remember who we are. Let's get back to our fundamentals. We're good.
Yeah, big-time win for this Newberry team. They, of course, hey, congratulations. Now you're going to play in Pensacola against West Florida.
Have a good
frickin'
time.
Argos. Here we go.
That'll be fun.
It will. Drew, Northwood, Congratulations. Speaking of congratulations. You got into the dance. You're playing what is probably the best team in the country at their place. And by the way, they're figuring out, the Bulldogs have basically figured out how to play Ferris State football again.
Yeah. No, I watched obviously every pretty much every play of this game. You know, playing against Ferris a season ago, they have obviously last year an Ole Miss quarterback now this year. And it doesn't seem like they really lost a step at all. And that's not saying Trinidad isn't great, because he is.
Even without Bauer, too, right? I mean,
But
that's the crazy part.
Without Bauer, right? Like, it just doesn't seem like they've lost a step. Number 10, we talked about him on the show. What's his name?
I'm
Bryant.
terrible with numbers. I'm so much better with names.
Is it Bryant, the receiver?
I got you in just a sec.
Tyreek Bryant, right? Is that his name?
Oh, dude, the box score from Ferris is like no shot at Ferris. Love our people at Ferris, but it's one of the
Tariq Brett.
Oh yes,
Bryant.
Brett. He's the one who had the ridiculous day against Grand Valley. It was like 3 or 4 touchdowns against the Lakers.
He is very good.
Correct.
Chase Carter.
Yep.
That kid can fly.
Yes.
Like, he can move. The guy. First off, I'm not making fun of the guy or whatever, but my mom pointed it out, and I did watch the game with my mom and dad as I obviously went to Northwood. The guy kept saying Bulldogs. It's Bulldogs. It was really making me annoyed. And obviously I was pulling for Northwood, but I was just like, get this guy off my screen.
Come on.
But it was funny. But no, he did say, he was like, Chase Carter is also on the track team, I think I heard. And he looked like it. Like, it was one of those, like, he could fly. And then Jalen Jones, he had a huge pick six to go up 27-7, and you could start to see the not necessarily the wind come out of the flag or whatever.
Yeah, wind out of the sails. That's exactly what I was thinking. Carter had touchdown runs of 40 and 53 yards on the day.
Yeah.
He stepped up big time for them.
Brady Rose also, I mean, I remember Brady Rose in high school, and he was a really good player. Has still been a really good player.
I mean, he'll quietly go and have a day on you too. He's not maybe the most explosive player on that
probably
offense, but he'll
Danny Woodhead, Darren Sproles of D2 football.
Correct.
Right? Like, you got a game plan for him.
Utility, man. He gets it done in a lot of ways.
I will say, Cobe, and it's funny because like people are obviously going to be like, oh, like, and obviously this one's more closer to home for me. Like, oh, Northwood clearly didn't deserve to be in there, but some teams that they were debating between. They beat Saginaw Valley, and the other teams didn't. So, common opponent, right? Like,
yeah, no, I definitely agree that this Timberwolf team deserved to be in the dance. Like, they put together a resume that was very much worthy of getting a bid, and the only problem for them is they had to play the Bulldogs at Ferris State.
They ran into the Bulldogs, apparently.
It's a tall task. It's a very tall task, and we've seen. I mean. You know, not to deflect. If anyone ever says that, hey, why don't you go take a look at that score over there in Super Region number 1 with that Golden Bears team, what they did to that squad from out the Northeast.
Oh my gosh.
So, Northwood definitely deserved to be in the dance. Unfortunately for them, I mean, that's an incredibly tall task for a program that has not been in that spot in a long time. We have no doubt, of course, that Coach B and company can keep that thing going in the right direction. But I mean, it's a tough region, man. Tough region in general.
Tough region, but good season for them. Ferris is as advertised.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes, easily said, because now we honestly thought Ferris looked a little bit mortal for a couple weeks there. Right, you go back to the Saginaw game, the Davenport game
Northern
recently.
Michigan. Northern Michigan was in the game against them.
Yeah, they were sleepwalking through that first half, right, against Northern, and you're like, Ferris can't do this in the playoffs. Well, guess what? They knew that as well. They ain't doing that shit. They're rolling out true Ferris State football, and they're back to business.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, dog, we were just messing around.
They're very much back, but. Duluth, their season came to an end. The Eagles, they stunned the Bulldogs 32-7. Ashland picks up a massive win one for the Eagles, but also two for the GMAC. I think GMAC has flown under the radar a little bit this year. There was a lot of really good GMAC football. That schedule was very backloaded and back-heavy with teams like Findlay, Ashland, Northwood, Tiffin, all those teams facing off, it felt like, in the last couple weeks of the season. This is a big-time win for that conference. I don't think that's an overstatement of saying the GMAC showed out, at least in this matchup, to dominate a team like Duluth that was averaging 40 points a game. They're averaging 40 coming into this game. And Ashland comes in with one of the most prolific defensive efforts that we've seen, at least so far, in the postseason. Wall Jasper goes down 5 times behind the line of scrimmage. He's tough to contain. He's very physical, obviously, when he gets that thing and goes. 22 carries for 45 net yardage for him.
Wow.
They've contained him as much as anyone, as well as anyone has this season. And they did a lot of other really good things on the ground. Shimmick and company on that defensive line. As well as 4 takeaways in total for that Eagles defense. That ties a season high for Ashland. But again, big win for Ashland. Even bigger win, I would argue, for the GMAC, dude, to show up on the national stage.
I agree. And Cobe, they scored 32 unanswered.
Correct.
Like, that's like this was one of those, like, Duluth goes down, scores, feeling good about themselves, and then an ass kicking. Like, this was not close. Like, 32 unanswered. The Ashland Eagles, I completely agree with you. The GMAC, you know, when Northwood transferred from the GLIAC to the GMAC, there at that time there was this notion of like, oh, the conference isn't even that good. Like, yeah. But like we found out pretty early. We were like, all right, these guys aren't like slouches. Like Tiffin is legit. Ashland's legit.
Well,
Finley's
Ashland
legit.
won the GLIAC not incredibly too long ago, right? I mean, that's a former GLIAC team that was in contention every year. And also, I mean, you look at the GMAC in 2025, even compared to like 2022, 23, this feels like a very different conference.
Leaps and bounds. I completely agree. I think this year I mean, Tiffin beat Findlay to end their year.
That play was nuts,
right? Like that was a fourth team right there. And Hillsdale was obviously no easy out to anybody. They play everybody close, right? So like I think, but Ashland has been the cream of the crop in my opinion of the GMAC, and this was a huge win for them. Completely agree. Because last year, if I'm not mistaken, they lost to Charleston in round 1, or did they beat Charleston?
It is time, Ashland University football fans.
Oh boy, we got the Ashland radio call popping up here. Yeah.
Either way, like there was only one team in the GMAC last year. There was 3 this year. Huge win for them, especially because obviously Northwood lost, and then we'll get to it, but Findlay had a tough one as well.
They did. That makes it even more important. They beat Charleston in the first round of the playoffs last year by 2, ended up falling in the second round to Cal PA by 1 point in Pennsylvania.
Right.
So,
yes.
Definitely another good run. I mean, but this one, they got serious potential to keep this thing going. Now, you want to talk about getting hot at the right time. Let's talk about running back for Ashland, Chris Maloney. He's got 519 yards, Drew, just in the month of November. That is 3 or maybe even 4 games, 100-plus yards per game for a guy that has not done that the entire course of the season. They started to figure something out offensively for this Ashland team. Maloney has been running all over opponents, and especially against the Bulldogs team and that front core group from that defensive front that has been very physical. I've seen them in person this year. That's a very, very impressive feat for this Ashland team. And like you said, statement win for the GMAC, which in this next matchup did not fare so well. Findlay, talk about ass kicking here, 37-14. And to be honest with you, Findlay, what really failed them was the special teams department. Some very costly plays, in special teams that set up the Mavs for either a short field or getting the ball back in possession. And that was very uncharacteristic of what is usually a very fundamentally sound Oilers squad that, again, we saw in person, saw them play that game against Northwood. And we knew the offense for Findlay still had question marks. I think that was a given, that they weren't maybe going to be able to keep up with certain teams. But allowing 37 points to a Mavs team that maybe we have just not seen control the pace of play like that, that is a tough pill to swallow. NSIC Twitter has been go ahead.
I genuinely, like, I texted you, and it was 31-7, and I genuinely was like, wow. Like, I was shocked seeing that Findlay defense in person, 30 points on the Findlay defense. You're just like, no way. You know what I mean? Just like that it would have been – if it would have been like – and this is no shot to Minnesota State. But, like, if you were like, oh, they played Ferris. Okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they played West Florida. But, like, this was a team that was the 2 seed in the region, as in Finley. Like, you're expected to win this game.
Yeah.
So
hosting too, right? I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I'll stress again, like, I think a lot of this does not go on their defense. I think it's their special teams department. That was a big thing that came of that, and I'll find the actual place here in a second. But, still had some big-time performances on that defense. Wyrow, a guy that we saw in person. How about 3 TFLs on the day? A couple quarterback careers in there as well. He's making plays behind the line of scrimmage. Kevin Henderson, another guy, 13 tackles, 2.5 behind the line of scrimmage, tackles for loss. Like, they still had their guys still showed up. Sam and Luke Wyrow, by the way. Incredible 15 tackles between the two of them, the boys. I love that family bleeds orange, but not enough. This Minnesota State team just had too much for them to handle. And again, not necessarily any individual outstanding performances from this Mankato offense. Now, Mitch Thompson, he had a good day, 20 of 27, 233 through the air and a touchdown. But Sam Backer, who usually kind of gets a good chunk of the carries for this team, only 6 carries on the day. Carter Henderson had a lot, 72 yards on 14 touches and a tud. Mitch runs one in, the quarterback. He ran one in for a score, but not necessarily a ton of explosive type plays. It really was, I think, the special teams that ended up really screwing over this Finley squad, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, for sure, right? Like, you get in these games later in the year, the margin of making mistakes on all 3 phases becomes slim and slim and slim. So completely agree.
Yeah, it was bad. I know someone had commented at us on social media talking about this too, in terms of like the special teams cost them, it says here, like 17 points. I mean, that's kind of the swing, right? In terms of you give up that kind of short field, you give up points in that department, in that. Honestly, you look at a box score, that just goes in the defense, not necessarily telling the whole story for this one, for Finley.
Well, Cobe, we get into the next game. Like, we talked about this team when we were at the Finley Northwood game as potential contender. They were trying to figure them out. UIndy showed out, man.
Hell yeah. Sukup and company are they are doing a lot of things right. And I know Shorsler and I talk later in the show because UIndy beat Marion, which is an NAIA team that shares Indianapolis. They're very close rivals. They brought back that rivalry this year. They beat Marion at the beginning of the year. And Marion still is a top 5 team in all of NAIA football. And so a lot of people are sitting there scratching their heads. They're like, what does that mean? Like, NAIA people are sitting there thinking, is this UIndy team legit? And a couple people ask me, like, what does this mean for Marion? I'm like, I don't know. This UIndy team has run that conference inside of the GLVC, but when it came to the national stage, they've just come up short, whether it was against Pitt State or Grand Valley, powerhouse-type teams at the D2 level. Saginaw, right? They've had their number. They've come up short when it comes to Division II and some of the top caliber opponents. Not the case so far this year. And again, still a lot to be determined because your first-round draw was Truman State, who – all respect to the Bulldogs, I could give you a couple teams that would have given a better fight to this Greyhounds offense. They had an explosion offensively, 57-14 win over Truman. That's what you're supposed to do against a team like that. You go out and dominate against a GLVC foe, and now they get a big test coming up here against Mankato. But I go back to that whole Marion deal. Now we're talking about this Marion team. That was the only loss they had. They're going really, going very strong in the NAIA. All of a sudden, people are looking back at that loss like, okay, yeah, that tracks. Like, this UIndy team was legit. That was not a fluke loss for Marion. Like, they actually played a hell of a good football team at the Division II level, and it's fun to see how those things shake out over the course of the regular season. But again, Sukup is going to be in contention for any kind of Player of the Year award. He has done it throughout every course of the season, and there are others on this UIndy team that have certainly stepped up for the occasion. But again, Sukup, 17 of 22, 339, 3 touchdowns. His top target on the day was Caleb Carver, 4 grabs. One of them was a touchdown. He had a 59-yard reception. Like, they take some big, long shots. He had completions of 59, 31, 39, 25, 21, 18. They're not dinking and dunking you down the field, dude. They're getting vertical on you, and they're making you pay for it bad.
Yeah, and when your leading rusher only had 61 yards and you're going to throw him for 339, that's where it's going to be questionable, right? Like, we all talk about, like, usually running the ball on defense travels, right? So for UIndy, it's going to be like, all right, I know you put up 57 points, but this next game, like, Can you
You're
be
playing a
more
team that
balanced?
was built for playoff football. I mean, you gotta say it. Like, that's,
Yeah.
you know, and not to say this UND team isn't. They can still go and change a lot of the narrative. I think that's the best part about it. They still have everything in front of them. But right now, you look at a team like Mankato that has been a perennial mainstay. They've definitely got some real estate in the playoffs the last, like, even couple of decades we're going back to. UND has made it. They have just not been able to advance the way a team like Mankato has. It's time for them to rewrite history. Time for the Greyhounds to rewrite history. We're not making game picks, but I'm just saying it's time for this team in this locker room to go change the narrative. You had some good defensive performances. Alvin Contreras, Jarrell Franklin Jr., they both have interceptions for this UND team. And it's not to say that Truman had a dude that was balling out on the other side of the ball. Thomas Spalding, 8 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 of them were sacks. He had a big-time day against this UND team. Big reason why Truman maybe had a little bit of a hope at a couple points of the game. But again, just too little, too late. Not enough going on for this Bulldog team.
Great logo, though.
Great logo. A lot of Bulldog talk today on the show.
I know. Jeez.
A lot of Bulldog talk. Let's flip over and talk about a little bit of a larger creature, larger mammal, larger win, dare I say. Harding, maybe not by margin of scoring, but against a really top caliber opponent. They dominate Northwest Missouri State. This is one that I had the chance to watch. We had Cobe, the center for Harding, come on the show tonight and talk with me about this one. So we don't have to get too in-depth since we talked with him about it, but I'll tell you this, Drew. This Harding team, they've got swagger, they've got moxie, they're about as physical as hell, and they play together. They love playing football with each other, and they dominated this Northwest team. Northwest defense, I'll tell you what, they had no answers for this offense. They had absolutely no answer, except for one man, which you might bring up here. Is that what you're saying?
When you run the ball for 284 yards, you're like, yeah, we're going to win the game.
No.
Except when the other team runs for 429.
Correct.
Oh, my God.
Are you ready for a stat line, by the way?
Go ahead.
This might be the most Herculean effort of 2025. Shane Fredrickson from Northwest Missouri State, 31 tackles for the Bearcats and a forced fumble.
Forced fumble. Yeah.
31 tackles. I repeat, 13 of those solo.
That's game of the year, in my opinion, defensively.
That might be game of the century. 31 tackles against a Harding offensive front that is as physical as they come in all of college football and Division II football specifically. And again, running and trying to defend the flex bone. Talk about playing assignment sound football. This guy was all over the field. The PA announcer probably got sick of saying his name.
Man, tackle, boy.
Fredrickson again on the stop.
Well, it is funny. Cope, we did just bring up, we were like, and not we, but like myself, let's see if they can become more 50-50 as in UND. Harden's like, man, F what you're saying, bro. We're running the ball every play. Two pass attempts for 48 yards does not matter when you run the ball for 429 total yards.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. They got guys like everybody is like, even like Brady Barnett, 1 carry for 28 yards. Like they're explosive in their running attack.
Yeah. And you go back to Shane. I'm going to stay on this performance because that was freaking ridiculous. Not only he had 31 tackles, do you think, well, wow, let's look at the rest of this guy's season, see what he's been carving up against opposing offenses. 31 tackles against Harding. On the road at Harding is the first time that Fredrickson has had a double-digit tackle game all season.
So he got the VC right before the game, and he was just like spending it. Like he went nuts. He was ready to go.
VC?
Yeah, it's a 2K reference.
I got it.
He spent his V-Bucks.
Unreal. I mean, you got to highlight that individual performance.
All jokes aside,
yeah,
that's phenomenal. Like I think my career high was like 14 or 15.
He over-doubled it.
And I thought I was playing well, and this guy doubled it.
Yeah. On the ground, of course, you can't talk about Harding without talking about Andrew Miller. 195 yards, 33 touches, 1 tud. Braden J, their home run hitter, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Christian Franklin, maybe a name we haven't talked about too much with this Harding attack, 2 touchdowns as well. Got in the later part there and then had some scores. Cole Keelan, he is the cog that makes this entire offense run. This team is so multifaceted, and that's exactly what you need with an option-type team. It is literally, I'd say, a 3-headed dragon. We need more heads on the dragon. This is a hydra. You cut one off, 2 grow in its place.
A bison.
You said what?
Right? They're the Bison.
Yeah,
Bisons, correct?
Bisons, plural.
Yeah, it's the stampede of bisons. Just they're all running
Okay,
at you
okay.
in the wild, and it's like one of those like it would be like a Jack Link's commercial where he's running away from like a bunch of bison. Like that's what it feels like playing these guys. I bet.
I mean, ask Shane. Ask Shane Fredrickson. I mean, he's.
Shane Fredrickson was like Captain America going up against Thanos and his army. He was like, I got to do something about this.
Northwest, incredible season. I mean, the turnaround they had, and they had some big wins. Unfortunate the way their season ended. Of course, the lost Pittsburgh State and now into the playoffs, but still a lot to be proud of here. That Northwest team kind of cementing yourself back in the national conversation as a D2 power. So a lot to be really proud of there. But move over. That team that beat Northwest just very recently, Pittsburgh State, the Gorillas, they survive a tight one in the jungle, Drew. This is one that I told you, this Shadron State team, put them on upset watch in the jungle. They almost pulled it off. Shadron coming off some big-time wins inside of our MAC play. Did not start in great fashion for the Eagles. Tywan Atkins Jr., he returns the opening kickoff, 99 yards for a touchdown. That's how Pitt State started this game. You're sitting there watching. I had this on. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, is this how this is going to go for real? And no, it was not. Shadron, they battled their way back into this thing and had some really timely defense. Pitt State in the third quarter specifically, 10 plays in 43 yards in the third quarter for that Pitt State offense and Barry and company under quarterback that we'll talk about in a minute. In the fourth quarter, Pitt State broke loose on that, what would end up being kind of the go-ahead score in the fourth quarter, but really impressed by this Shadron State team and their resolve.
I get that, Cobe. Like they played very well. I will say Pitt State missed 3 field goals. It's a completely different game.
Yeah.
If they make one, maybe even 2, right? But credit to Pitt State. I believe they were 1-2, right? They were 1-2.
0-2
to start the 0-2 to start the year.
0-2, man.
Yeah, 0-2. And I remember being on this show with you and Tim and being like, I haven't lost faith. It's a gut feeling. I think this is a good team. And I believe they're 10 in a row. So them next year or next weekend in probably the game of the year, to be honest with you so far.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. They've won 10 in a row. The last couple have been against some really quality opponents. Shadron State, Northwest Missouri, Central Missouri. Like, you go back, they've won some really quality games. The season has got on. And the guy at the front of it, Jackson Berry, we've talked about, maybe struggled a little bit earlier in the season taking care of the football. He's done a very good job of that in the second half of the season, Drew, which I think is maybe one of the biggest points of this. He has not thrown a pick in the last 4 games.
He was very efficient this weekend, 17-22. Not necessarily like airing it out, but like that's dinking and dunking for 177. And sometimes that's what you need. Like we just talked about it. I forget what game it was. The turnover margin is a huge factor of why teams win and lose football games, especially in the postseason. When you got a quarterback that can protect the ball, 17-22 is efficient, 177. He's just operating the game plan, taking what the defense can give him. And then you're, as a team, running for over 100 yards. Like you're playing good football.
And he's a transfer quarterback. He's only gotten more comfortable in this system as the season has gone on. He tied his best season completion percentage on Saturday, 77%. And what you've seen for Barry and for the Pittsburgh State offense in general is that trend of being more selective about when we're throwing the football. Hey, let's get back to this Pitt State gorilla, in between the tackles, dominant ground game type offense. These first couple of games, it was very uncharacteristic. Jackson Berry is throwing 41, 38, 34 times through the air. This is not the Pittsburgh State offense that we've come to know and love, and you can win in a variety of different ways. I think they've started to get back to those roots. The last 3 games, 22, 29, 22 pass attempts. And again, you got to win it however you can. And especially in these type of playoff environments, Pitt State seems to have gotten back to the basics, so to speak, and gotten back to some of those fundamentals that we've come to associate with this Pittsburgh State team. So I love that for Pitt State. Love watching this team still.
Who's your pick next week?
I mean, sorry, give me the Bisons, dude. I love Pitt State, man, but I will say this: Pittsburgh State's you talk about a terrible taste in their mouth. They got bounced last year out of the dance by this Harding team. Do not expect that same level of blowout, and for this Pittsburgh State team to roll over like they did in 2024. I do not expect that. I do not see that happening. With that being said, the Bisons look freaking unstoppable. Now,
hey, might be the best team in the country versus the hottest team in the country right now.
I like that. I like that comp. Now, before we move on, I have a clip that I want to show here. Drew, I don't think you'll be able to hear it, but the people at home definitely will. And this is something that I wanted to show. This is the head coach from Chadron State, Jay Long. And the word here from his tweet, and I'll play the video in just a second, but he says, "Thank you is not a strong enough word for me to say to the ones that believed in us when things weren't going our way. This includes my wife, my family, the team, and our coaches for the work they put in this past year." And this tweet was from the postgame presser after that loss in the jungle to Pitt State. So I'll play that for the people here.
Just want to finish with our team. Talking about them is that first off, we were 3-8 last year. We played this year 8 road games. We played in the FCS team. We played in 2 overtimes to get to this game. We also played Western State 3 weeks ago. They were ranked 10th in the country. We just got done playing Pueblo, who was ranked in the top 5 in the country, and we just got done playing Pitt State, who's a top 5 team. We belonged here, and we showed that we're also a top team in the country. These guys I brought up here are guys that real easily in this world in the portal days could have left us. They could have left us in a minute, and I would have been probably scrambling this year for a new home. And they didn't. They're very, very loyal people. They were raised right by their parents, and I'm extremely proud to be the head coach of Chadron State College and being a former alum from there.
I freaking love it, man. Just true passion from this guy, a true servant leader, and he gives all the credit, of course, to his players who have stuck by him in this program throughout the portal process and everything, and they've really started to build something special over there. So shout out to Coach, shout out to Chadron. Love following along with these guys, love watching them play. But let's keep things moving. We got another RMAC team that fared a little bit better, Drew, in the playoffs. Western Colorado, they survive and advance their trip to Central Washington. This is a playoff matchup that we've seen the last couple of years. This time around, the Mountaineers, they rally past the Wildcats into the second round, dude. They had a pretty quick start in this one. They get up 14-3 in the second quarter. It did level out. Central Washington would actually take the lead in the third. So this is a very back-and-forth type game.
Yeah, and Central Washington was led by their quarterback, Kennedy McGill. Played very well. 65 on the ground. He also had 258 through the air. He didn't. Am I reading this right? He didn't have a touchdown though. But yeah, like they played very well offensively. But this game seemed like it was a back and forth game, right? Like 2 teams that were, like you said, familiar with one another, and it was going to be a battle, and that's exactly what it was.
This is the third straight year, Drew, these two teams have met in the first round of the playoffs. Last year, Western Colorado, they won it. A year before, they lost in overtime. This has produced some really quality football games, and it's become a matchup, again, 3 years in a row in the playoffs, man, to meet again is pretty ridiculous, just the way that the matchups have certainly panned out. And every step along the way, it's been a phenomenal football game. Western, they survive and move on now, rally past this Central Washington team.
Drew Nash was also there. He came to Kennedy McGill's a good player, but Drew Nash knew that, like, hey, if we're going to have a back and forth game, and he also showed up as well. I think 192, 2 tuds through the air, and 66 on the ground, tud on the ground as well. Like that, he played very well.
He definitely did. McGill was the leading rusher for this Wildcats team. He's held to 59 yards on the ground. Western had 7 tackles for loss. They were averaging 9.5 per game. They do a lot defensively that is given some fits to a lot of different teams across the RMAC and otherwise, Drew.
Yeah, I think when you're getting into the backfield for a TFL or a sack, that's obviously going to mess up the entire game plans, because now you're dealing with second and long, third and long. You know, all of a sudden you're maybe second and short, and now you're third and long. Like, and then not only that, but they had 3 or 4 QB hits, a bunch of PBUs. Like, this defense for Western Colorado, they came to play.
We just eclipsed an hour of talking D2 football. Freaking love it. We got the best one, potentially the best one for last year. I will say I got to watch this game, was floored by the Falcons. UTPB, their dominant upset. That sounds like an oxymoron or kind of hyperbole in a way. It is. I mean, 37-24 doesn't feel dominant, but if you watch this game, I'd say this is a dominant win for UTPB, the way they jumped out to a 17-0 lead going into the second quarter. Going into halftime, it was 23-3. CSU Pueblo, they bounced back in the second half, more specifically kind of in the fourth quarter, the pair of scores that made this thing a little bit more interesting. But to me, talk about a statement win for this UT Permian Basin team going on the road in the Thunder Bowl, a lot of different adversity. Cannon Gibson, he was notably not on our Player of the Year watch list. Might need to be added, Drew. 24-34, 343, 3 touchdowns for him. He had a freaking game. He's been a big-time signal caller for them all year, but he showed up when he needed to. Had 3 through the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, that's – have a freaking day.
We didn't give out a Player of the Week this week, right?
We did not. No, we don't do any for the playoffs, but there were a lot of really compelling cases.
Cobe. We're doing it right now. That kid won the D2 one. He balled for UTPB. Like, he had such a good game. Like, we already talked about Shane on the defensive side. Let's give him the other one. Like, these two kids balled. And you talk about a guy in Cannon Gibson, not only that being named Cannon as a quarterback, that's cool. But 70 on the ground to go 343, career day. That's a career day in the playoffs.
Indeed, and this defense showed up when they needed to as well. Tristan Exline, he anchors this defense, a guy who has been one of the best, if not the best player in all of the Lone Star Conference when it comes to defensive quality football. This is a team that continues under Coach Cobe to trend in the right direction, man. They do a lot of things right down there at UTPB, and excited to continue to watch the trajectory of this one, the first playoff win in program history for this UTPB team. Seems like we have a lot of those. I love that. I love the fact that we got some teams in the dance here that are making noise. Yeah. The first round playoff game here, and once again,
Western Colorado and UTPB. Who are you taking?
That is that's kind of the question. I like my Falcons right now. If I had to give a pick right now, I think they're red hot, dude. I think they're playing a really good brand of football.
And I not only that, but I think they've kind of come out of nowhere this year, right? Like,
not necessarily. I don't think, I wouldn't say they came out of nowhere. I think, Coach Mack has taken over this team.
Just like the success as far as like they're experiencing new success, right? Like
in terms of the playoffs, yeah. I mean, you look at last year, 7-5. And lost a double overtime game and a bowl game, did not make the playoffs. But then you go back to 2023, they were 10-2, and they lost in the first round of the playoffs. So this is they've obviously made it further than before, but definitely not an unprecedented level of success.
And okay, I wouldn't necessarily say out of nowhere, but 7-5 to 10-2, huge jump.
Yeah,
right. Like,
made the jump back. Right? It's one thing to be a
jump
flash
back,
in the pan,
I would say.
Right?
Yeah,
we go 10-2 once, make the dance. Hey, that's great. You kind of have a little bit of a recession the next year, bounce right back. We're back in this thing, and actually, matter of fact, we're better than we were before.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Not necessarily come out of nowhere. That was what they bounced back, but even better.
Watching Cannon and this offense work in the first quarter, when I say dominant, like this offense was doing anything they wanted at will against the CSUP defense. So we have not really seen operate like that this season. Again, talking about the defensive side, Gibson, 12 of 16 for 181 yards, 2 touchdowns in just the first 3 drives. Sewell, his top target, at 6 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, early on, it was everything Falcons, everything through the air. They were dotting up that Thunderwolf defense. And again, this could have gotten even uglier. A couple scores late make the scoreboard feel a little bit more interesting. Very much not the case for UTPB. Yeah.
No, they played very well. Very well. They scored in every quarter.
Love that.
Shut out in the first quarter. It seemed like Pueblo had like a little bit at the end, right? They're fighting, but it just too little too late.
Holy D2 football, dude. That's got to be a record. We're at 1 hour and 8 minutes talking D2 football.
Yeah, I mean, that's not as much as OG back in the day. That was 1 hour 30.
Well, think though, this is probably gonna be like the longest pod in D1R history. I'm not gonna lie, this one's gonna be insane. Yeah, but that was great. Imagine. It didn't. The thing is, to me, and hopefully the viewers feel the same. That did not feel like 1 hour and 10 minutes. That felt like it moved. There's a lot of really good games, and again, we got to talk about all this. This is playoff football. There's no reason to leave a game off the script because we got to talk about all these games. Now, of course, it only get more and more narrowed down as we continue throughout the playoffs. But thank you, dude. That was a lot of fun. A lot of good football to talk about.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. I can't wait to see the Harding and Pitt State score.
That's gonna be nuts.
It's gonna be a good game.
That's gonna be nuts. Sweet. Thanks, Drew. I'll see you, buddy.
I'll see you.
Joining the show tonight, a big part of a big win for this Panthers team out of LaGrange College. They're heading to the second round of the playoffs for the first time ever. It's a tight end, Mychal Stillwell. What's going on, brother?
What's up? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on here. How about these Panthers? I know I was talking a little bit before we got going. It's just like 0-9 in 2023, and you obviously weren't a part of that team yet. You're just in your second year now at LaGrange. To go from that to a year where you're undefeated in conference play and have one loss on the record, and you're moving into the second round of the playoffs here just 2 years later, that's just not something you see in college football, I think, at any level. So we'll get into that a little bit. But for you, man, first team, All-USA South, some other big personal accolades that have, of course, come this year for you. A lot of people, they'll say that the accolades come when you go out and your team wins big-time football games. That seems to be the case for you and this squad, but how do you describe this 2025 season so far for this team, man?
It's been really fun. You know, we've been really versatile on offense, defense been showing out too. It's just all the players too. We have good chemistry. I think that plays a big part into it too. That we're willing to go to battle for each other. That plays a big part. And it's honestly just been fun. You know, like people around here not really used to winning, as bad as it kind of sounds to say it, but being able to change it and getting everyone used to it and getting them on the train with us on the winning, changing the culture has been real fun. I'm just glad to be a part of it.
That's a real thing, though. I mean, I come from a program that has had some very tough years as of late, and you get eventually, if you get downhill enough, and this is a slippery slope, where now you're talking about if that can persists, that kind of unfortunate seasons, to put it very lightly, you're talking about a team that might be full of guys that doesn't know how to win or hasn't experienced winning at a high level. And so to get out of that rut and into a groove of winning and winning at a consistent level and changing that mindset is a very real difficult thing for a lot of programs to do. But we talked about it this year. You're undefeated in the USA South. This team is rolling absolutely in, second round of the playoffs, coming off a big win that we'll talk about. What do you and this group kind of attribute that rapid change in trajectory, though? Because it's one thing if you go from winless to almost undefeated in a 5 or 8 year span, but to do it in just a couple of years, what is the thing, if you had to put your finger on it, that you attribute that change in trajectory to?
I'd say the coaching staff.
Okay.
They're really, they're just really good at their job. You know, we're kind of short staffed when compared to some of the other teams. Like when you look at the numbers, we're kind of short on coaches, but they know how to come in and do it, just do what they need to do and keep us in line. And that kind of goes with changing the culture, having a coaching staff that's really with the culture and dedicated to changing the culture plays a big role into it. And that leads to us respecting them and wanting to go to battle for them in the end. And I'll say that's probably what I'd attribute it to most.
I mean, the buy-in is shown, and that's a given, right? And something that was sweet, obviously, for this trip. You guys, you hop on a flight for this one, which is a pretty cool deal. That had to, I imagine, elevate the playoff experience quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it was real fun. Some of them boys, it was their first time flying too, so that was pretty funny to watch and be a part of. But yeah, it was real fun. I got to stay in a nice hotel too. It was definitely hopefully not a once in a lifetime, but it felt like a really good just thing to be a part of with the guys. It's something to be able to share with them, something I'll be able to hold on to forever.
100%, man. That's got to be a really unique experience. Then you guys go and you one up that experience, right? Because on top of all of that, we're talking about the unique opportunity for this team to go inside the Patriots facility at Gillette Stadium. And that is something that not a lot of teams can say they did, certainly. You guys certainly a part of that list now. What was that experience like, and how did that elevate this whole playoff experience for this LaGrange team?
It was pretty dope. It was something, talking about team chemistry. I know that really helped. All the guys got to, be there together. It was a cool experience to share. I would say, we took the elevator up top, though, man. That was real high. Like looking down on the stadium it felt like crazy just to see everything from all over there. But all the facilities was real nice. All that and it kind of it helps you give something kind of to work towards. Man, I wanna be able to experience this every day at some point. And we saw the head coach too when he was leaving the building.
Did you really?
He looked me in my eye, gave me a head nod too. It was pretty dope.
That's pretty sweet, dude. That's a cool deal. You talk about like an experience to remember. The travel and those parts of it, that's got to elevate the whole experience and the whole build up to a game like this. I have to imagine it's kind of twofold. One, it's got to make you guys feel big time in terms of like, we're hopping on a plane, we're touring these sweet facilities, but also does that help maybe for a team that hasn't had this level of experience in recent history? A lot of guys, this is the first time playing in the postseason for them. Does it help to take their mind off of the game coming up, a road trip like that? Maybe, settle the guys down a little bit and just give them a little bit of, for lack of a better term, a little distraction before game day?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could. I mean, for me, I don't know. For me though, it's just kind of like helps me get turned up. Like,
Okay.
man, we get to do this, we keep winning, man. I want to keep winning so I can do this all the time. Like, we need to keep this going. That's how I do it. I mean, some guys maybe that does help them take their mind off, but I don't know. Once we leave, I can't stop thinking about the game.
Yeah. 100%, man. And that game, I mean, let's talk about it. Big win in the first round, 24-21 win over a solid Framingham State team, and you guys did it in dramatic fashion. Had to recover the onside kick there at the end. I'm sure there was a little, maybe a collective held breath on that sideline, but you guys were in control near the end of the game. Of course, it got a little interesting very late when they drive down and punch that one in. What were the emotions like on that sideline for a team and a group that we've kind of talked about it a lot that hasn't experienced winning on this level as a collective? You guys have broken through. What were the emotions like on that sideline?
Whereas we were up the whole time. We didn't for us, like our mindset, we losing wasn't an option. There was no way we was finna fly all the way up here and lose. Like, so we just had to make sure we didn't get down. We kept our heads up. We kept everybody up on the sideline, and even the guys who traveled and didn't put on pads played a big role too. Them keeping everybody up.
Love that.
Nobody with their head down. Tell them get up, man. We still in the game. It's like we gotta win this. You know what I mean?
8 catches for you, 93 yards in what could be a statement career-type game. Now, again, career-type game, we're talking about you in year 2. Like, there's a lot of ball to be played for you yet coming down. But in terms of those first 2 years, that one's got to be up on at least podium in terms of performances. Big-time game for you. How did you step up, big stage, in what looked to be some pretty tough conditions? I didn't get to watch a ton of it because of the whole streaming issues that I'm sure you've heard about. Of course, right? You guys finally here in the playoffs, and I can't even turn on the game. But besides that, big game for you. How'd you step up on a big stage in some tough conditions?
It was, I just remain calm. That's really all I stay calm, do my job, It's really nothing crazy. I just kind of keep the same thing every week. Just don't let my head go crazy, and just got to build that trust with the quarterback early in the game. I think that helps too. If you let him trust you, he'll be willing to throw it to you.
As a running back, it's like you get your first carry, love something between the tackles. Let me hear like the pads pop, and then like let's roll. Like I need that first carry just to get going. For you, is there a comfort route? Is there a comfort play where you're like, I need to get this. I need to either get my hands on someone and put them in the dirt, or catch my first little, out route or whatever to get myself in a rhythm? Or how does that roll for in the tight end spot?
For me, well, really, it depends on the play. Like if it's the blocking, like I don't really need a play to get ready to block.
Okay,
but
first snap, we go.
Yeah, I'm good. But catching though, I say what really helps me get settled is if I catch that first ball and like break a tackle, then I know I'm like, oh yeah.
Okay. I love that. I love it. And you had a big one. One of them was like 30 plus, and that set up a touchdown, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
That's got to be that's a big confidence boost, I bet.
Feels good for sure. And then it feels good too to see him, you helped your brother eat too. That feels good too.
Yeah, because you set him up for the big score, man. Now you're back on the road this weekend at Barry. Don't believe you're getting on a flight for this one. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess. Yeah, okay, I didn't think so there. What do you know about the Vikings early on before really diving, of course, into the film here and trying to watch some of their recent stuff? What do you need to do to stay alive here in the playoffs, man?
I just know they're a real disciplined team. I know they're going to do their job. They're going to fly the ball. So it's really, I just know we can't have no dumb penalties or like gimmies. We can't have none of that towards them. Like we got to do our job. We can't have just simple mistakes. There's no room for it.
No self-inflicted wounds. Good recipe for success at any level, dude. What do people still need to know about this Panthers squad if they're not hip yet?
We're going defensively, we're going to fly to the ball, and they're going to hit some. Offensively, we're going to run the ball down your throat, and then when you start loading the box, we're going to bomb you. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. Simple is good. I like simple. Sometimes football can be a game of finesse. Sometimes you already know what we're doing. Good luck stopping it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, awesome. All I got for you, my friend. Excited to hopefully be able to actually watch this weekend, potentially, and get the stream working up. But I'm excited for this team. Excited to have you on here and rep this squad, dude. It's a first for the program, so I love it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me again, man. I'm really thankful for this opportunity.
Of course. Have a good rest of your night, man. I'll see you.
Sure. Thank you.
In Division III football, we had round one, a lot of teams that got a bye in week one. Still some teams that had to earn their way into this second round, into the D3 playoff, an expanded playoff. Still a lot of really good football. I don't think the product was very watered down this weekend, Seth, except for maybe a couple games.
No, man, this is the best time of the year. I mean, not only, do you get to have some Thanksgiving dinner this weekend or this week in general, but there's a lot of good football still being played. And I also love this time of the year because, there's some teams out there that, maybe I haven't paid attention to as much that got in the dance because they did what they need to do and win their conference championship. Like a team like LaGrange, like I hadn't really followed them much, but now because we're into playoff football, I get to learn a little bit more about these teams, I get to watch them up close and personal. So it's such a fun time of the year, man.
It definitely has had the chance to have Mychal Stillwell, one of the tight end from that LaGrange team, on the show tonight. We'll talk with him. I guess at this point in the episode, we've already talked with him, so we'll talk about that game here in a little bit. But let's kick things off with some teams that kind of up that same alley. Maybe we haven't talked about a whole lot. The Garnet Chargers from Union, they go down, they get beat by Muhlenberg, and the title from the recap from the Mules is Picks and Kicks. Help football to a playoff win. The picks, of course, the 2 interceptions from Leo Doberman, and then their sophomore kicker had a pair of field goals come from behind type of victory. 34-26, Muhlenberg. They're moving on.
Yeah, Dante Mahaffey. I mean, what an absolute weapon that kid is. He made a difference for sure in the air and on the ground, but also in special teams. He had 84 yards in the kickoff return game. And that's a lot. I mean, that's a couple of first downs stolen there, and that's an impact play. He actually returned the opening kickoff 34 yards, which, I mean, if you're a special teams numbers guy, you know that increases your chances, by 14% if you just let that thing go into the end zone. So look for him to continue to have, if they're going to have success, this Mules team, I think he's going to have to keep having one big day after the next, but
have to.
What a tough task. Like, I know we're not going too far into next week, but Mount Union, obviously it's a tough task, but we'll see, man. Like that's a good team now. So
yeah, they're hot, and I think something that's interesting when you look at this, Luke Spang, the quarterback from Muhlenberg, not one that has seen a lot of postseason action. His first start in a playoff-type game, atmosphere, and environment, able to come from behind and pick up a big win. 24 of 31 with 3 tuds and no giveaways through the air. I think that's good, generally speaking. But that's a big-time performance for a guy who maybe hasn't been under that type of pressure situation. Now, Muhlenberg, they've taken their lumps over the season. They've played in their fair share of big games, so that obviously helps a guy like him prepare for this moment. But to see a quarterback that steps up maybe on the biggest stage is something that's really important. Again, to your point, if you look ahead, and we'll talk maybe a little bit, preview some of the matchups moving forward, you got a Mount Union team coming up this weekend that is it's going to be a really tall task. I think that's probably the easiest way to say it.
No doubt. And he's going to see a defense that's just as good as anybody in the country. And,
correct.
One of the things about really good quarterback play is, when the lights are brightest, we truly see who you are. And, we've seen what he's been able to do so far this year, but man, it's hard for me to say like it's going to be a walk in the park, because it most certainly is not.
No, that'd be a disservice to
probably,
QB and the boys over there for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Talked with Mychal Stillwell earlier, but let's talk a little bit about this Panthers team. They're moving on. Late surge from Framingham State. They move on with a 24-21 win. The Rams, they scored late. They had the opportunity for an onside. And again, talk about a Panthers team that has not a lot of experience in these situations.
Right.
These are the teams that, I'm not going to say always, but usually these are the teams that crumble in a situation like that, and it takes one play to go the opposite bounce. Again, an onside kick, football is such an irregular shape. All it takes is one freaking oblong, oblong bounce, and this game could have a different result. Thankfully for the Panthers, they recover that onside kick, seal the deal, and Mychal had said the emotions on that sideline they were ridiculous.
I think, like you said, a team from maybe past years, you said they would crumble, but I think that goes to show like the culture that's maybe changing a little bit over the years. And I think that the teams that I've seen like go from maybe a little middle of the pack to start to kind of creep up in the conference and maybe even win a title, it's that culture. It's that big difference of belief. And, learning a little bit more about this team, their defense has continued the trend of playing really well against the run. They held the Rams to just 1.9 yards a carry on 22 carries, no less. And, when you can make an offense one-dimensional and make them throw it all over the yard, it's going to be a good day, especially, for a front seven as good as that. Like you said, got a little scary there towards the end, but, let's go into this next one. Let's take maybe not a deep breath per se, but let's reload and lock and load for this next round, man.
And this is one of the streams that just wasn't working straight up. That's a whole nother deal.
Tough deal.
In D3 football.
Tough deal.
It sucks, to be honest with you, especially as someone who just copped the ESPN Plus so I could watch D2.
I did
D3
too,
football.
Man. Yeah, take my $11.99. I mean,
and just throw it into a pit.
Seriously, and it's. I mean, there's been a lot of commentary on this, but I think it just goes to show, let the schools take care of this thing, man. Like, even if I'll take a paywall, honestly, legitimately, I'll take a paywall and support the local conferences, support the small schools. Don't give my money to ESPN Plus. Support the small schools, and we got to get this figured out. We got to get this figured out. We got to increase the bandwidth. We got to increase the. Whatever we got to do, we just figure it out for round 2.
That's the tough part, and I think the devil's advocate here, so to speak, is the fact that you assume and you believe, obviously, that so many people have ESPN Plus. So does this broaden the range? And that would be, as kind of a test case to go down the road a couple of years. I'd like to see, what is that viewership? How is that changing? Are there data that we can access from the media or public that says people who are existing ESPN Plus subscribers are maybe tuning in and finding different avenues to these games? I'd be very interested to see that. Obviously, don't know because the kind of people we hear from are the ones that are so actively involved in the Division III football space. So,
and even if
metric.
No doubt, and even if I hope this shows if it was a viewership thing, they couldn't handle it potentially. I hope ESPN sees them and be like, man, what are all these people watching all these D3 games for?
That would be if that was the case, that'd be freaking fantastic.
We love it, right? Keep it going, but it's tough. Get it figured out though.
Yeah, in reality, it's probably one little hardware, software, something. Yeah,
they'll probably get it figured out. I mean, it's just interesting that it was multiple games, that basically all of them that had issues. But it's tough.
This Panthers team, not a lot of issues for them. First time making the second round of the playoffs. First time they've reached double-digit wins in a season. We're talking about a team that just a couple years ago, Seth, was, I believe, 0-9. This program has had such a quick turnaround to the national playoff here. And that confidence, I think, showed on Saturday in the first quarter. You got a 4th and 5. You're in plus territory. You're doing all right in terms of field positioning right outside of the end zone, or the red zone, excuse me. But 4th and 5, you take a shot and you convert on that thing, and that sets the tone for the rest of the day for this LaGrange team.
No question, man.
And they really got going, and some turnovers that they were able to generate on defense, on downs or otherwise. And again, took a late lead with about 3 minutes left, up by 10. Framingham scored with 23 seconds left, but the onside kick was unsuccessful. The Rams taken down by the Panthers, dude.
Yeah. No, I love it. No, it's awesome. I mean, you don't see that type of turnaround very often from going
anywhere in college football.
From any level, over to you're making your run now. You're making your run. This is exactly what you love to see. This is why I love November football.
It is
December. This is what you see the big teams that continue to win, continue to have success. Shout out to those guys, but when you see a team like this Panther squad, like you're talking about, turn this thing around, have a lot of success, having Thanksgiving with the team for the first time.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love that.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
That is definitely a great reason to miss the family Thanksgiving. And Wheaton's in that same boat. They've seen a couple of those big guys that you talk about, and they took their lumps over the course of the season. They're showing people that this team is no fluke, obviously. And Crown, you come out of that conference, again, another incredible year for the Polars. Not really the strength of schedule that Wheaton has seen. That's not a stretch at all. And Wheaton really showed up in a big way. 76-14 over the Polars. And now you go back and you look at some of those games against a Mount Union that earlier in the season that was people kind of thought maybe it was a fluke. Maybe that's not a fluke. Obviously, there's still a gap between them and the Cardinals. There's still a gap between some of them and the top teams, but any given Saturday, man, Wheaton it definitely has you look at the rest of their schedule in a little bit of a different light when you go out and dominate a conference champion, no matter what the conference is.
I mean, if you really look at their entire schedule, they really, I mean, short those 2 losses, they've dominated pretty much every game they've played in for the
Yeah.
most part. And, you know, going back to Crown, like you said, I want to say congrats to them, first of all. I mean, what the quarterback did this year, running the ball like he did, regardless of strength of conference for sure. Like, they went to the playoffs for the first time and they made their run. Not necessarily like, of course, you want to go and, you know, win some more games, but I mean, it's their run, not anybody else's. But, like I said this before, like I think Wheaton might just be one of the best 2-loss teams in the entire country. There's certainly some WIAC teams that have something to say about that, and other teams around the country that would like a word about that. But gosh, they just continue to dominate. They continue to play really hard against, you know, the teams that they should beat. Like the teams they should beat, they're dominating. You know, and there's a gap between basically everybody in North Central right now. If we're gonna say it how it is, as far as you got to beat the champs at this point, if you're gonna say otherwise. But man, I Wartburg, man, like they got a good team coming to Waverly, and I mean Wartburg's a good team now, but I think Wheaton's a really good team as well.
Yeah, 3 interceptions for the Thunder in this one. 7 different guys toting the rock, 7 different guys catching it across the board. Obviously, a game like this, you get a lot of different people involved. But what that also means is a lot of your guys stay healthy and ready to go and get maybe a little bit, I don't want to say more rest, because they still suited up and played. You know, I'm talking about at least like a half of this game. But you do, there's not that scare, right, where you're losing a big-time playmaker on one of the sides of the ball, hopefully is the case from Wheaton going into that game. Because, yeah, it definitely doesn't get any easier, and the offensive output is going to be the question mark against a Wartburg defense that has been the stalwart as ever in D3 football.
Let's see it. I mean, we're going to see a Big Ten matchup. Is essentially what we're going to see. Wisconsin versus Minnesota. We're going to see, or you know, Iowa versus Michigan State.
Okay.
Something like we're going to see a 17-10 ball game, maybe even less than that. The Wartburg's not. They're going to play that 3 high. You know, cover 3. They're going to suffocate that run, and it's going to be really hard to play against. So, yeah, it's a really good front. So, excited for that one, man. It should be fun.
You know, I was going to say this might be a stretch for Big Ten football, but with the recent expansion, I think it makes a lot of sense, dude.
Seriously.
Chapman over Whitworth. This is about as Big Ten football as it gets. We're talking about a game day crew that was out at Oregon USC covering Big Ten football. This is pretty Big Ten-esque. 18-16, they take down Whitworth, and this came down literally to the final seconds. A 2-point conversion with no time left. Jacob Gowdy, he breaks it up for Chapman, and the Panthers, they roll into another big time win. These are 2 teams that are super familiar with each other. These matchups are dicey. These are literally, I think, a lot of times a coin flip, because you have 2 teams that are so familiar with one another. Chapman, they get it in this iteration and move on in the second round.
When you see like these West Coast teams playing, like they have to play a lot, right? Like that's why you know you see these long trips, like Oshkosh going out to Linfield early in the year. Like it's tough, man. And you know, this is definitely not the way that I really saw this game going. Like I thought the Whitworth win over Linfield carried a lot more weight than I guess maybe I should have let it. But you know, with both of these teams, two very different defensive fronts. Chapman runs more of that 3-down Cali defense that maybe you're familiar with, if the old Pac-10 or Pac-12 even, geez, like way back then. But you know, Whitworth running more of that traditional 4-down front. I certainly had my eyes on this one, because obviously whoever wins this one is coming to town to River Falls, and but yeah, this is not how I saw this game going. I thought Whitworth was going to be a lot better, but I guess I got to give the Panthers a lot more credit than I was giving them.
Yeah, and Chapman, they had a missed point after attempt on their first score, and that almost came back to bite them in the ass, because that would have been a deciding point in terms of a tie or outright type of situation. And this Whitworth team, 62 yards in the final minute 30. How about textbook sub 2-minute drill to go down the field in a game that did not see, I'm not going to say it didn't see a ton of offense, because I actually don't really think that's the case when you look at, you know, some of the statistics, but it didn't see a lot of scoring. I think that's probably the difference there, because these teams still had some things going. Chapman especially, I mean, 364 yards total offense is not a terrible day for them when you see how they stack up typically, but that Whitworth team, 62 yards, final minute and a half. That's impressive. And then I kind of said it, Gowdy, his pass breakup, that's the final play. He had 11 tackles, a sack, and then an interception on the second play of the game. So he was at the start of the game and at the end, and probably everywhere else in between, 11 tackles on the day. That's big time. Preseason All-American.
Yeah, and it's hard for me not to look ahead on recapping this one, because I just see 18 points on there for Chapman. I'm like, good freaking luck, man. Like the thing about playing, and I'll go into my River Falls rant for a minute and 30 seconds here,
Okay,
maybe
there you
even
go.
less actually.
The 2-minute drill.
Right, even less, right? The hard part about playing a team like River Falls, especially how fast they play, like that's the hard part. Is the WIAC teams, they know how to kind of prepare for this tempo. Like they're snapping that ball as fast as they possibly can, and when they get that film, like they don't see that. Like Chapman isn't seeing how fast they play, and so they're really going to have to get creative. I think this week of practice. Okay, how are we going to prepare for this? They're going to get really basic with their calls. They might have 5 calls that they want to go to all day, like whether it's a trip set, whether it's a nub trips, or whether it's empty. Like they have to be really concrete with how they're getting to their defenses, because otherwise, man, like it's going to be a long day. Like they're going to be huffing and puffing, even though they're going to go from like I don't know what the temperature was over there in Cali or wherever that game was played, but it's gonna be cold this weekend up north, and they're gonna have to fly all the way up here, and it's gonna be cold. So good freaking luck, man. That's all I'm saying.
It definitely will. That's in Spokane, Washington. That's where this game was played at Whitworth. But,
it probably was chilly.
Yeah, it says on here says weather. It just says fog. That's awesome.
Okay.
They don't want to let you know.
Maybe that plays into the points. Maybe they couldn't see. Like maybe they couldn't see
it was
much.
so
I
thick
guess
that the rushing attack was all that they could get going because the quarterback couldn't see downfield.
Couldn't see the ball.
Fog
Receivers couldn't see the ball. The quarterback couldn't see the
new
center
one.
snapping it to him. Yeah.
This will be, from what I can understand, the first ever meeting between Chapman and River Falls, according to the respective websites here. And you look forward, and this is a Chapman team that averages a little less than 30 points per game. Obviously a little bit different than that River Falls side. They're a little bit more reliant on the ground game. I think that's something that we've seen from this Chapman squad, and they like to control that pace of play. Unfortunately, when you're playing Riv, that kind of gets taken out of your hands a lot.
For sure.
Is kind of the easiest way to say that. But again, only one way to find out. They have dominated time possession throughout this season, 34 minutes to 26 of the opponents. So that's obviously a big piece as you try and keep that offense off the field for River Falls. The problem is we're talking about a River Falls offense that can score in 2 plays, and we've seen it a lot of different times. So you got to limit the explosive plays and keep Blaha and company off the field. And, of course, you got to travel. That is another
That's the hardest part probably of this whole
deal.
game, man. Yeah, I mean, you got to travel. You're going to play in really nice weather all week in practice, and then go play in 20 degrees of weather that your team probably hasn't seen all year, probably hasn't seen maybe ever. I bet there's not a lot of Wisconsin boys or Minnesota guys up there over there in Chapman.
Question.
So, yeah, good. I'm so excited for this matchup, but good freaking luck is all
100%. And this next one is one that I picked wrong in my preview for D3Football.com. Grove City. I thought they'd pull this out. I felt like this team has been on an upward trajectory the last couple of years. They were a Cinderella story, I think, in 2023. 2025, not the case. This is a team that has had some PAC championships, whether divided or outright or otherwise, and they've been on the up. So to me, I just figured that something there, coaches and company, have got this thing, you get things rolling with a program like this, that they were going to come out and kind of defy the odds or defy the algorithm, if you're Logan Hansen over there, Hanover. Right. But Hanover, they defend home field 23-15 over this Wolverine squad. That's a statement, very statement, historic win for the squad.
No question. This is absolutely a statement win for this Hanover team. First ever playoff win at home. I really love what Ian Rodebush has done this season so far. He's been really doing it all. 22nd in the country in total offense per game, 287.9 yards a game. They dominated time of possession in this one by almost 10 full minutes. And they've been able to really dominate on the run specifically, which is obviously what's accounting for that time of possession battle. But what a great win for Hanover. Like you said, I think you button this up perfectly. This is not how I saw this game going, but they really they dominated this entire game for the most part.
They really did, and I think the turning point for me in this one, this team's a Hanover team that's up 10-0 at half, and very attainable gap. That's nothing crazy for this Grove City attack. But in the third quarter, at the very end of the third quarter, this Wolverines defense has a chance to pull off a goal line stand. 3 plays in a row, they stuff Hanover. And on the fourth try, from my understanding, they get in on the 1-yard rush. That's a big play. It's an 18-play drive, 80 yards, almost 11 minutes time of possession for this Hanover team. March down the field and take literally as long as possible, 4 plays, just punch, punch, punch at the goal line. And the last opportunity, they get in, they make it 17-0 into the fourth quarter. And that's tough to come back from. Grove City, they did their best, said they scored 15 points in the last quarter, a little bit too late, and that last score was, obviously less than 2 minutes left. It was nothing too crazy, but that to me was a big part of the game. Goal line stand or not, that determines the flow of that and the momentum heading into the final quarter.
You're essentially a 14-point swing on that whole deal.
Correct.
I mean, once you look at it, that's absolutely the football game right there.
Yeah.
Especially in a tight game, like obviously not a ton of points getting scored in this one. Like those possessions like that, they determine seasons at this point in the year.
Yeah. They do, and let's flip over. Cohawks, they roll over Concordia, Wisconsin. 44-7 win on the road, too, because of the couple losses that Co had. Concordia, the conference champ, with that auto bid, they get to host, and not really a shock factor here from Co.
No, not a surprise for me at all. I mean, good season for Concordia. Like, they played really well in their respective conference, a team that kind of had been dominated by Aurora recently, and so shout out to them, obviously, for having a good year. But I said it on the show at the Secretary's Cup. I said Brady Kelly was going to be the offensive player of the year in the American Rivers Conference, and he is exactly that. He's been surgical. And here's what I'll say about Co. Like, I'm not going to speak to this specific game too much, but Co has lost to 2 of the top 3 teams in the entire country. And, a tight loss to River Falls earlier in the year, shootout, and then obviously Wartburg. Both, I don't know if they are 1-score games, but, under 2-score games in both of those. But I think this is a tough draw for Bethel, personally. Like, it is. This is not going to be, we saw Bethel early in the year. We've covered them all year. But I think it's a tough draw for them. Like, Co is a lot better than maybe teams even think.
Correct.
Mainly because of those 2 really good losses, really quality losses. But, man, yeah, I'm excited for the Cohawks. We'll see what happens, but that lower left quadrant, or that lower left side of the bracket, I mean, it is brutal. I mean, you have WIAC teams, you got the defending champs, you got the best team in the MIAC, you got maybe one of the best 2-loss teams in the country. Like, that is a stacked side of this whole thing.
And those losses, they showed they can play in 2 very different styles.
Exactly.
Of game. 59-47 and 17-7. Like, those are the 2 games that they lost against 2 really quality opponents, but they show they can compete in both those. The offense can keep up with the standard in the country right now when it comes to offensive output, and they can also go toe-to-toe with the best in the ARC when it comes to defensive heavyweight type matchups. And in this one, Concordia, in a game like this, obvious underdog, have to go through and set the tone early. They were looking to do that. Opening drive, get all the way down to the red zone, and you punch this one in. Maybe you set the tone. You swing first, and you get landed a punch here on this Cohawks team that nobody expects you to go beat.
Right. Yeah.
Intercepted pass. That thing goes the other way, and it's like, okay, dominoes start to fall. This thing starts to snowball in a very dramatic and quick fashion for this Concordia team.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Again, you summed it up pretty perfectly on that. I mean, good season. Continue to try to compete in that league, but again, it's like, you got to play pretty perfect in a game like this with a really good team. Like, especially, kind of the same story with the Wheaton game. You got to play perfect, and, you throw, a pick early, it's not going to go very well for the rest of the day.
The game of the week for me, one that I got to watch almost in its entirety, Susquehanna, they win, again, my game of the week. It's 38-32 over a Washington and Jefferson team that really surprised me in a great way on Saturday. This was a game that was honestly more back and forth than a lot that I've watched over the course of the season, in that every time it felt like someone could chip away and get ahead, the other team really just brought it back into it. And of course, the big piece is to remind everyone, we'll talk about it, man, is that Susquehanna still has one of the best offensive backfields in the entire country.
Doubt.
Whether it's Ehrlich at quarterback or Lamons at running back. Well, these are guys that I think we haven't talked about maybe as much in the last couple of weeks. And Lamons had the injury to kind of start the year and maybe got off to a slower start than expected with the loss for the Susquehanna team. But this was so back and forth. It was ridiculous. Defense and special teams, 3 turnovers for this Riverhawk defense and 5 sacks and you're still only winning by 6 points. That shows you how tight and how close this game was. Usually you have those numbers and those metrics, and we're talking about a 3 or 4 score win for the Riverhawks. Not the case on Saturday.
No, Kobe, I'm not sure if you, you turn this game on right away, and one of the more wild calls I've seen. I'm not sure if you have that one loaded in, but
I do. I mean, it's hard with video because of the ESPN deal. So
score bug, damn it.
Yeah.
Score bug got in the way with that whole thing. But, one of the weirdest interceptions I've ever seen, because I'm watching this thing, I'm like, all right, scrambles out and, throws an incompletion, and then, okay, I guess it's an interception if you want to call it that. Looked clearly off the ground. Clearly, the way that oblong ball bounces off the ground, I'm like...
Officially speaking, it was off a foot.
I don't know if a ball comes off a foot like that. I mean, it bounced straight up.
I know.
I mean, so tough break. Tough break. Again, one of those tight matchups. This is one of those tight matchups where stuff like that makes a difference. And when I'm not saying that's why, they lost the game or why Susquehanna won, but man, what a tough way to start. But this feels a little bit like a statement win for Susquehanna. We didn't really talk about them after the loss, early in the year. And I feel like a lot of people maybe counted this team out a little bit, but guess what? They get to go and they get to prove every single person wrong this weekend in that lower right-hand side of the bracket. I know that's probably not the right way to say it, but like they get to prove everybody wrong. And I'll talk about him in a minute, but Rashawn Lamons, man, like, let's see if he can keep this thing going. I think he's going to be able to, but yeah, statement win in my opinion.
I love that, dude. And this, another crazy game in this one, and this is one I saw live, was kind of ridiculous. Susquehanna, they're driving down a big-time chunk play. Guys going towards the front left pylon, and he's got a Washington and Jefferson defender comes up behind him. Straight peanut punch this thing from behind. Ball trickles out on the 1 yard line. And everyone I thought everyone just kind of sat there and looked at each other for a second like, wait. Like, did he really just, because usually a guy, like, okay, he's getting into the end zone, like, ease up a little bit, like, lay off the burners. Like, no, dive, lay out, peanut punch this thing, ball pops out, touchdown, taken away, just like that. And it was, again, one of the biggest plays of the day. There were a lot of odd ones. There was another interception that the Riverhawks had that the ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage, bounced around a little bit, grabbed that thing, take it the other way, and it was this. Felt like a game that you just have to study the shape of the football and figure out how this thing bounces.
Yeah,
there were a lot of ridiculous ones on either side. And again, really impressed with this Washington and Jefferson team because they overcame 3 turnovers, 5 sacks, and a lot of other things to keep this game very, very competitive. But obviously in the end, not necessarily enough. I mean, they score to make this a 1-score game with 4 minutes left. And so they obviously feeling very, very confident this is still very much within their reach. Susquehanna goes and just, again, we talked 2-minute drill earlier. They 4-minute did this, drill this thing out and grind clock, and they pick up the win 38-32.
Yeah, it's, everybody loves talking about those 2-minute drills and the last second touchdowns, but equally as impressive is when you have to milk that clock out and really impose your will a little bit because, you don't want to take those risks at the end of the game. And love what they did on that last little chunk of that game. Really impressive by Susquehanna, and I'm excited. I mean, this is one of those teams that, there's some teams that we've talked about so far that you're like, all right, good win, but right, this is a team that I think this is a team that I still think can go on that run and potentially win in a week. But obviously, no easy task. But this feels like one of the teams that could seriously go on a run here.
All about getting hot at the right time. And on the final play of the first half, Susquehanna down 17-14, come through, block the field goal, take it to a 70-yard return by Romero Lavalier, I believe is how that's pronounced, Lavalier. That gives Susquehanna the lead, and they'd never give up the lead after that. So that is a huge swing. You're down by 3 points. Washington and Jefferson has a chance to go up by a touchdown, essentially. Instead, flip that thing. We take the lead. We never give it back. And Lamont said it was just like a spark. That play right there, that changed everything. How do you win the 2 minutes going into halftime, the 2 minutes coming out of halftime? They do that, the momentum shift, it goes, and they continue to roll, man. That was another, again, This was that's just a microcosm of this entire game. There were ridiculous singular plays.
Just ridiculous plays all across the board.
That was fun. I'm glad that if there was a stream that worked, I'm glad it was that one.
Yeah.
Because that game was awesome. I like genuinely enjoyed watching that. I haven't really watched Washington and Jefferson a whole lot this year in terms of actual games. Yeah, I've seen highlights, but this is the first time I think I've gotten to sit down and just watch like a live stream straight up of these guys. So love that. Let's move over, talk a little bit more out east here. The Pride from Springfield, they step up defensively. Cortland, 21-7, the fewest points since November 24th of 2012 for this Red Dragon offense. That's astounding. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's hard to it's almost like difficult to look at and hard to watch because like you're looking at a team that, guess what, won a national title very recently. And obviously there's a coaching change. Obviously, some guys go some different places. It's a new team, but like, damn, like that shout out to Springfield. First of all, I mean, I wasn't really familiar with their game too much, I guess, but kudos to them for only throwing 3 passes and winning this football game. Because damn,
that's how they roll.
I mean,
let me tell you something. That's how the Pride gets down. We had Arson Stefan on the show a little while back. I believe that was just last year. He was one of the guys. You talk about like a freaking cannonball with legs. Like that's exactly how this guy played and just start rolling. That's how this offense goes. And when you have guys like him, he has moved on now and graduated. But when you got guys like him that make this thing go, that's dangerous combo. And it's one of those things exactly what's going to happen. Doesn't matter. You still can't stop it.
Inject that directly into my veins for the rest of the playoffs. Shout out to, I love some old school run the ball down your throat football. Like I'm a big fan of that. TJ Welch carried the ball 19 times for 140 yards. Love that. Love that out of your quarterback for sure. So let's keep that going against Johns Hopkins. Let's just not let's not let them possess the ball at all in either half, essentially. Let's just run that clock down. Let's play good football. Obviously not a tall task by any means, but sheesh. I love that. Like, again, not one of the games that I watched on Saturday too closely, but wow. Again, 3 passes, wild to me.
2 playoff victories in a row over this Cortland team. And I'll go back to Arson just because he was on the show. I'm familiar with him and his game from a year ago. They beat Cortland last year at Cortland and went on to lose against North Central in the next round. But this this Arson cat, I know he's gone, but like he just need to take a second. 6 foot, about 230. Like just a freaking monster. He had, last year had 1,700 yards and 21 tuds. Like,
oh my God.
And 1 catch.
The 1 catch is lit. That's the one
for
we
7
like.
yards against Cortland in that playoff game. But yeah, that's how this team rolls. They are one of the most physical in the East, one of the most physical, in this region, and they've got more guys. Of course, Arson comes to mind immediately, but they've got more guys this year on this roster that are fulfilling that role and obviously doing some things right.
Right. No, yeah, it's fun. Let's get those type of guys more touchdown catches or just more catches in general. I love the big man touchdowns. What I think we're gonna hopefully see some more of that this weekend. Obviously he's gone, like you said, but give me big boy touchdowns all day long.
Yes, I like that.
1,700 yards, 20 touchdowns is crazy. That's
yes, it is.
Like that style of play. Love that.
In terms of big time difference makers for this week, I know you want to talk about Rashawn because that's a guy that we just haven't touched on enough, I think, in recent history. Maybe for good reason. We've just been keeping him a secret up until this point, or what?
Well, I think that's maybe how Susquehanna looks at it. We talked about him a lot going into the season, right? Preseason All-American, preseason All-American, All-American a year ago. Unbelievable player. Obviously didn't play much due to the injury, and so that's why I'm calling him my biggest riser because haven't talked about him enough, but it's like you turn on that Susquehanna game and 26 carries, 121 yards and a tud. And then to cap that off with, a couple, 3 receptions and another touchdown, do not let this guy get hot down the stretch. Just, especially I think this is a defense that can hang with teams. And like I said, do not let Lamons get hot. He is shifty. He is so hard to tackle. He's such a good player. And for not talking about him as much, I apologize, but damn, it's time to go now here.
Yeah. I love it, dude. I'll flip back to a guy that we talked about a little bit earlier, and Jacob Gaudy, man. This guy for Chapman, who had a phenomenal game and 11 tackles, a TFL, which is that sack that we talked about, and then a 43-yard return on an interception to go with that 2-point conversion breakup for this Chapman team. A guy as a preseason All-American that has lived up, I think, to the expectations. I think is really safe to say for this Chapman team. He is a native of Honolulu, Hawaii, Seth.
Shout out.
Which I think that's something that maybe gets lost on some of these teams, your Washington, Oregon, Cali type programs, in that they do have a little bit of a pipeline and a recruiting trail for these guys because, of course, you have the Rainbow Warriors, right, Hawaii down there, but other than that, there's no D3 presence down there. There's no NAIA Division II college football presence out on the islands that I'm aware of, and maybe we need to make that happen because it would be electric, but that's not the case. So this is an all-SCIAC first-team selection a year ago. Certainly would imagine that he's back in that here this year, but I'd have to go and double check that. But a guy that has been a difference maker for this Chapman team, I think every step along the way defensively this year for them. He's got 68 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions, couple pass breakups, even blocked a kick, 2 forced fumbles. He does it in every aspect of the game. Seems to be a leader for this defense. And he's only a junior. That's what's really exciting about this guy is that he had a breakout year his sophomore year, comes in, is right back up to the expectation level this junior year, leading this team on a kind of unprecedented type playoff run, and then he's still got another year ahead of him that I'm sure he'd be the first to tell you he's not thinking about right now. He's trying to make sure this team goes as far as possible, and how the hell do we stop Blaha and company from this River Falls team? But he's got a lot of really good things going on for this defense, second leading tackler on that squad. And again, we talk about this sometimes for a guy that's at the safety position. If you are the second leading tackler on your team, that can be a bad thing sometimes. That might not be always the best, but you talk about their system, what he's been able to do. He's obviously very involved in that downhill game, 5'11", 205. He's a physical box stuffer type of DB downhill.
Yeah, good luck.
Love it, dude. Sweet. Well, matchups. I'll pull up the graphic. Matchups for this weekend. We've got a lot of big ones, a lot of exciting ones. I'll pose this to you as I try and find the graphic. Give me one that you're, outside of River Falls, you're not allowed to pick that. Give me one you're most excited
for sure
about when it comes to matchups.
Dude, that's so hard. Like, that's so hard.
Yeah, I know.
It seriously is. Like, I'm pulling it up. Like, I'm looking at it myself right now. I'm just scrolling through it. And it's like,
yeah.
Like, all right, Muhlenberg, Mount Union. Yeah, still big game. Randolph Macon, John Carroll, huge game. Trinity, Harden Sims, huge game. So if you had to make me choose one,
I do.
Gosh, again, so hard. Frick, I'm sorry, dude. I didn't know you were gonna ask this, and I'm glad you did, though, because this is awesome. I think for me, that Whitewater DePaul game, I think, is potentially the biggest one. Whitewater obviously struggling at some points, and you might say, oh, DePaul, maybe not like, it's not the WIAC by any means, but like still really competitive league. Like those Ballantyne brothers, like they're going to go to work here.
Yep.
And I
Coming
think
off a big Monon Bell win too. They got a bye week. They're rolling.
Right. And I think if they can get ahead early, kind of like we've seen some teams do when they've beaten Whitewater, get ahead early, especially with those play actions and some of those deep shots that DePaul likes to take. I could see this being, an incredible game. And then honestly, like every single one of those games in the lower left-hand corner, like pretty much obviously other than maybe in the North Central Hanover one, but all of those games, massive football games.
Yeah, that Hope one for me is definitely interesting. We're talking about a Hope team at home that I believe is still an underdog in this type of situation against obviously a lacrosse team that has been very tested so far on the WAC. That's one I got my eye on. Coach Stursma and company down there, the Flying Dutchman. I'm excited to tune into that one. But then the other one for me is this Susquehanna Christopher Newport type of game
for sure.
Here. This
Huge
is a CNU captain squad that, of course, brought down Salisbury and now has a chance. If things pan out, we could get that rematch potentially moving forward. Now, a lot of things would have to go in that fashion, but in the bottom right, that Christopher Newport team, how do they do against Susquehanna? And the Susquehanna's coming to their place is my understanding. So that's a big one, a big get for the captains. I got my eye on them for sure.
I don't disagree with you at all. Like this is actually maybe potentially the game of the week. Like this could definitely be the game of the week here. Like, I mean, you got the 1 seed, correct? Like that's the 1 seed, Christopher Newport, correct? In that corner, and then you got Susquehanna, who I think can go on a run, potentially game of the week. I won't officially make that the game of the week on my part, but dude, again, just so many good games across the board. I love this time of the year. I love playoff football. I love it more when River Falls is playing. Oh my gosh, I'm like getting chills just thinking about playoff football right now.
Christopher Newport and Susquehanna have played once in the history of their programs. That was in September of this year. Captains beat them 41-27. They beat what was then the number 13 team in the country at home. Obviously, tough to repeat that success, but if there's anything to go off of, that is quite literally the only previous meeting between those two schools. And
potentially without
have,
Lamons
some
in
good
that
updated
one?
film on each other.
Without Lamons in that one, potentially?
That is a very good point, because that would have been week 3 for the Susquehanna team.
I don't think he played until Johns Hopkins, I believe.
Yeah, let me double check the kind of the timing on that, because I think you might be right, and I can just look at the box score too, actually, now that I'm using my brain here.
While you look at that
now,
one,
Lamons was in that game, 13 carries for 45 yards and 1 tud.
I mean, that was obviously the plan, right? I mean, it's going to be the plan again. Limit that dude. Do not let him beat you. Like, let somebody else beat you on that team, because he absolutely will.
Correct. Yeah, Connor Berry has been, the player of the year out of there. He's on our watch list. He's a guy that you absolutely need to be aware of. He's very efficient, under center and out of the pocket. The junior quarterback is lit it up so far this season for the Captains. So very excited, man. Big weekend of playoff football coming up, dude.
We love it. Love it. Best time of the year.
Sweet. Thanks, brother. I'll see you.
Yeah, absolutely. See you, bro.
Join the show tonight, the Frontier Conference Defensive Player of the Year in the West Division, a man who showed up big time for the Fighting Saints at Carroll College this weekend. Their win over St. Thomas. It's Braeden Orlandi. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, it's going good. Big win last Saturday, so we're riding that high still, but everything's going good.
I love
appreciate
it,
you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. Were you in on the interception return? Level with me here, quick. Start things off.
Yeah. I was so in. There was like 4 different camera angles. They're showing it on the jumbotron. I was like, Coach P, review it. But hey, only thing that matters, we got the points. That's what I was happy about. We were able to punch the ball in, so I thought I was in.
Orlando dives for the pylon, and then the ref comes down and he's like this, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I turn around. I'm about to get lit with the boys. I turn around.
Yeah, you're already celebrating. You're already celebrating.
I was like, dang, that's tragic.
That is hilarious. Loved watching that. Obviously, you punch it in and get the job done here, and we get to laugh about it now, of course. But for this team, we're in not unprecedented territory, but this is the first time in kind of a long time. First postseason win for this squad since 2014. And that's a kind of a shocker to me as someone who's followed this program, and you guys have had some great success. What is it about this team and this group in 2025 that has gotten the job done, and what gets you really excited about hopefully the next couple weeks here, man?
Yeah, I think it just like the overall just like kind of morality of the locker room. Like you walk into the locker room, people care. I've been around a lot of football teams, and you can kind of tell when people do or do not care. But all the boys here, we care. We wear that badge of honor. Hasn't won a playoff game since 2014, and we took that on the chin. We wanted to change that. So you know what? Glad we were able to get the win, but we're not satisfied at all. This is just a stepping stone. We got a big matchup coming up this week against Tech and all, but people care in this locker room. We got a bunch of dogs too. Like I think kind of people are starting to finally realize like we got dogs on this team. Caden Hewitt, dog. Gunnar Julio was leading the nation in interceptions for a little bit, dog. Yeah. Got dogs all over the place. And so when this team clicks, when we're riding our high, I think we're one of the best teams in the nation.
You've played like it too. You've absolutely played like it, and you showed the Bobcats. This ain't Miami Gardens, right? We're talking Saturday. That's a trek, and that's a different conversation. That is a trek, but you guys obviously on the better end of that deal and that arrangement take care of business there. And for you specifically, more than 11 tackles per game this season from the safety spot. Sometimes that means really bad things are happening for a defense. If the dude at the third level is making all the plays and making all the tackles, we've probably both seen it, that means the defense on the front 2 levels is faulty or not a lot of good things are going on. Thankfully, not the case for this defense. You happen to be the outlier statistically, the anomaly, so to speak. But how do you get so involved in that downhill part of the run game and the run defense?
Yeah, no, I honestly got to give all the credit to our defense coordinator,
Go.
Coach Bandolo. He kind of invented this three high safety look. I know some other teams run it, kind of got into it late last year. But yeah, that three high safety look, it frees me up to go do a lot. Teams don't know I could be inserting into the box or dropping over the middle of the field. And honestly, a lot against St. Thomas, I wasn't really dropping in the box too much.
Yeah.
They're an air raid team. They like their big boy posts across the middle of the field. So they kind of used me back, in that deep third, kind of hanging over the middle of the field this last game. But I think it's just ways that Bandolo schemes things up. He works around all of us. Like I said earlier, we got a lot of playmakers on, the D line, the linebacker level, and then the back seven. So I think Bando just freeing me up to kind of pursuit of the ball, see ball, get ball kind of type ordeal. So just kind of reminds me of my younger days, Pop Warner, just kind of, he limits my rules and kind of lets me just go play football. So got to thank him for that.
And that level of comfort and that speed defensively comes from a strong knowledge and understanding of your assignment, right? And that's something that not a lot of people can play with, because you have to be totally sound in your assignment to go out and fly around and make plays and play see ball, get ball, Pop Warner type football, because that's how every defense in the country wants to play. But then they get bogged down with different assignments and shifts and stunts and different formational changes and switching calls. But if you get comfortable enough and you do all the prep work, then on Saturday you go out and you just turn the lights on and you just go. And that's something that we've seen from you and this defense. You seem to be obviously head and shoulders one of the captains of this defensive unit, not typically a role that you associate with a redshirt sophomore at any level of college football, really. How has your comfort level in that system helped you to make everyone else around you right, so to speak, and help clean up the defensive back end of this defense and this squad?
Yeah, no, so I think, honestly, I kind of got pretty comfortable pretty quick. My first game ever starting actually was last year against Montana Tech at home, so so the first two drives, they were kind of moving kind of fast, but I kind of realized like college football is just like high school football, but everyone's just a lot stronger and a lot faster and kind of on an equal playing field. But I think kind of last year, I kind of broke the seal of kind of getting into that, like having the dudes trust me, and I feel like that's huge, especially the spot that I'm playing. I need the guys to trust me, like that I'm gonna be in the right spot for them. So I feel like this year I really toned into that role, just being a playmaker, and I feel like that's the best way to make guys trust you, make plays, and so I love it. I like to say I'm pretty comfortable. I walk into every game like not necessarily like nervous, but I walk into that game, especially as a DB, you got to walk onto the field. I'm the baddest dude out there, and so that's kind of what I carry on my shoulders. Kind of gets me into some trouble, like talking the smack, but that's
if you don't
kind
have
of got
that
to walk
mindset,
into
you're at that spot. You're maybe in the wrong position group, right? And you
100%.
Saving a couple expletives there. I love it though. That's the moxie that a DB core and a DB group has to have, whether you're playing out in the Frontier or the frickin' SEC, the GLIAC, whatever it is, man. Because you're going up against some really top talent. We'll talk about some of that top talent here in a second, because you got another big time assignment this coming weekend. But I like to ask guys this one in terms of, give me a one-word trait or attribute that you would use to describe this Carroll team. And it might be a different word than maybe you would have thought at the beginning of the year, but now what you've seen this team go through in 2025 and what you've seen them overcome, what is a trait or an attribute in kind of a one-word deal that you think would describe this team and why, man?
It might be a little cliche, but I think grit. We've had a lot of wins where, you got to be a gritty team, like our one down in Southern Oregon.
Yeah,
that was a gritty game. I feel like a lot of teams would just kind of fold over, and take the L. But we're gritty. We're in denial. I think that might be a good one too. We're in denial. Like we're gonna go out there and fight to the last whistle. And sometimes it may not be pretty, but I feel like sometimes that's Carroll College way, but we're gonna get it done. So we can't really complain too much as long as there's a W on that scoreboard at the end of the game. Then.
That might be the first time I've, heard an endearing usage of the term denial, but I love it. I think that's awesome, right? Like block out everything else. Doesn't matter situation or circumstance. We play our brand of football and you compete to win. That's a great pitch. That's a great flip on that. I've not heard that before. There will be coaches around America that incorporate that into their lingo as this drops here. I definitely think so, but I like that a lot, man. Now, though, time for yet another iteration of, dare I say, the best rivalry in all of NAIA football. You guys take on Montana Tech this weekend, back in Butte, America. What makes this a great rivalry? How do you get a better result against the Ore Diggers this time around, dude?
Honestly, I'm not a Montana native, so I kind of came into this like, Montana Tech, whatever, they're just our rival. But no, you learn throughout the week. I feel like on both sides, you learn to really not like those guys. I respect them. They're 11-0 for a reason. They're a great football program over there. But yeah, just like any rivalry, like Cat and Grizz, you learn to hate those guys. It's not them personally, but it's just the rival that comes with it. And this is why you play football right here. Big rival week in the playoffs, and so yeah, I'm excited. I'm ecstatic going into it. Already got goosebumps.
It's only Sunday. You're juiced. It's Sunday night.
I know.
Hold on. We got a lot of time left.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten to we'll get into the game plan of things tomorrow. But, we played them earlier on in the year. And I think the biggest thing I'll say to that is, to beat these guys, we just got to play our brand of football, be us. And so, I don't think I can really get into too much of the schematic of things.
Yeah, we don't need X's and O's. I hear you, man. I think what's important about that, too, is you talk about that last matchup. That was more than 2 months ago, right? And I think it's pretty safe to say, although these teams are still sporting, probably the exact same personnel, these are two very different teams in November than they were in the first week of September when you were still very much figuring a lot of things out. Not to say that, again, we're going to have a lot of the same faces and a lot of the same matchups skill-wise and across different parts of the field, but does it feel like these are pretty different teams heading into this matchup than it was in September?
100%. And honestly, I haven't watched too much of Tech since the last time we played them, just going into the season.
That's not your just sit-down, late-night pleasure viewing is Ore Digger football?
Yeah, no, sadly not. But yeah, no. So I don't know. It's just kind of, we'll see. It's kind of one of those things where anything can happen.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a storybook ending. Like this is it. I feel like both sides were going to go into that game like it's the championship. And I feel like that's how you got to play it. You got to, like we played these last 2 weeks with it's win or go home. We had to go beat Eastern to even get into the playoffs. Yeah. So going back to the gritty thing, we're just going to have to go out there, march out with grit and, put our nose on the grindstone and grind for 4 quarters. So
you guys have done that every step of the way, man. Feels like when you've needed to, you've stepped up with a big turnover. This last week, obviously, it was you on the receiving end of that, which probably should have been 6, like we talked about, but it's happened at multiple points. What is the emphasis on causing those turnovers? Is there something specific in that system that you feel like really enables that, or is this just a really opportunistic group of that 11 on defense?
Yeah, honestly, kind of both to that. Everyone wants to make a play. Coach preaches, do your 111th and your play will come. And I think that's what we're pretty good at. We're a really unselfish group. And so, when guys are doing their jobs, that's when the plays are going to come. And just like the relentless effort of everyone, we have all 11 hats flying to the ball every play. You got Forrest Suero, Denavion Ali on our D-line. Forrest Suero is like our third leading tackler on the team. He's making tackles 8 yards, down the field. So dudes are relentless to the ball. They want to get to the ball. And I feel like that's what makes a defense great, all 11 hats to the ball. And honestly, that's how takeaways come. You got to create your own luck, and luck comes through hustle. That's what I believe. You hustle the ball, one of those things are going to pop into your hands one of these days. So
I would say ball goes on the turf. When you have 11 hats there is not necessarily a math guy, but your chances get exponentially better when it's surrounded by a bunch of Fighting Saints. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that.
Correct. Sweet, man. Well, I'll definitely be tuned in to that one because most of the region game. The nice part about you guys being a couple hours behind is like all these games in the Eastern Midwest type of stuff. They start wrapping up. Flip the script. Let's tune over and see what's going on out west. So I'll be tuned in this Saturday, man. Thank you so much for coming on. That's all I got for you, Braeden. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for having me on. I appreciate all your whole crew does. It's a pleasure watching you. Me and the boys sit down, on Sundays and flip you guys on and watch all the things you guys have to offer. So appreciate you for having me on.
You're the man. Thanks, brother. Have a good rest of your night. Good luck this weekend. Excited to tune in.
All right, you too.
All right, before we get into NAIA football, I want to go back to our great friends and our partners over at AthLinkd and showcase their platform and how easy it is, whether it's coach, player, fan, media member, whatever it is, to go through and find a bunch of information. Right now, the transfer portal is certainly heating up as teams end their seasons. We've got a list here. We can divide it up by portal, JUCO athletes, post-grad, international, high school now is something that is coming into AthLinkd as well. I'm going to stick in the portal because that's something that really applies to this show, trying to track the whereabouts of these top talented players and where they go. So we can come up here to our filters, kind of our search parameters, and let's say today we want to really focus in on the top NAIA transfers that are still uncommitted. I can do all those things right here inside of AthLinkd, and when I apply those filters, here we go. We've got all these NAIA uncommitted players. I can sort them by star grade, their API rating, their projected division, the day they entered the portal, division, their experience. AthLinkd sorts all of these things, also gives you their home state and their estimated eligibility coming out of the portal. So let's sort them by API rating. You can see here, Josh King Bradley. He's the one that pops up right away. I click, I can find him. He's coming out of Kansas Wesleyan, big-time program, NAIA program down there. The Coyotes, I do believe, out of the KCAC. He's got 1 year of eligibility left, looks like. And, I mean, here's the numbers on this guy, right? D lineman, 6 foot, 250, get all those stats. And right away, I can use a lot of different metrics, see a lot of different things on these guys. If I'm a coach, player, or otherwise, go down another one, Darius Haskin right here. And you can see top offers from other schools already, see where he's getting interest from, and continue to make some decisions. I can mark this guy as I go through and add him to my catalog, so to speak. There's a lot of really good things that come out of this. There's even more information and statistics as you scroll over. You can curtail and curate this to whatever you like. You'll also see there are these icons next to each of these names. So Nathaniel Ortega, we've got the search icon, this video icon, and the link. If I click on this link, well, guess where that takes me? Right to his social media. His X platform gets pulled up immediately so I can get in contact with him and check out what he's posting on social. Of course, I hit that film icon. Guess where that goes? It's going right to his huddle. I can check out the highlights, anything I need to know. So AthLinkd is certainly a great place for coaches, fans, media members, anyone who's interested in this type of setup and formula to check out all the top talent inside of the transfer portal and otherwise in college football. Big thank you to our friends at AthLinkd for partnering with us and sponsoring this episode. NAIA football's got a little bit of a similar setup to Division III in that we got some teams getting a bye, quite a few of them actually, and 8 teams that squared off this weekend. Thankfully, a little bit different than the D2 realm where we had 16 games to break down. NAIA is going to ramp up here this next weekend, but safe to say, although there weren't, I think, any real quote-unquote upsets this week, I guess, in NAIA football, the games, for the most part, did not disappoint, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. These opening round contests were wonderful. There was only one of them, which this first one we're going to talk about was the only one that really wasn't close. But even then, there were still some key things to talk about with William Penn taking down Texas Wesleyan 38-9.
Oh, yeah.
Very dominant performance. Destin Loring on the ground had almost 200 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, just absolutely took over the game, and very convincing win for William Penn. Defense ultimately being able to get done what they need to hold Texas Wesleyan back. And we kind of alluded to it last week, but maybe Texas Wesleyan taken back by the fact that they are playing in this contest, especially with the circumstances of their bid getting into the playoff, quite literally at the last hour.
And you're going to see a trend here. I think we got a favorite celebration from this William Penn squad here.
Yeah,
Getting to the end zone. All the boys are hitting this. There's Loring. He has cemented himself in that Player of the Year conversation, I think, safe to say.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that Jackson Waring is in the same division as this guy, because, my goodness, the returning Player of the Year has also been having a great season, and we'll see him this coming weekend. But, William Penn looked fantastic, and I'm really excited to see them in a friends matchup, who we'll talk about a little later on.
That is going to be an interesting one for a William Penn team, that doesn't get that look right? It's not a team that is maybe familiar with that necessarily. But the defense, you talked about it a little bit. They step up big time. Talk about a pick six, takeaways that set up this team for success right away. And when you dominate the ground game, it wasn't, not going to say it wasn't ground and pound. They obviously dominated on the ground, but it was explosive chunk yardage type plays. And it was very quick off those turnovers where it was an interception. The next play, these statesmen are going down the rundown and scoring a touchdown. It wasn't necessarily dink and dunk down the field. They're breaking off these big chunk yardage plays. Really impressive against this Texas Wesleyan team. Now, of course, they had them at home. I don't think that diminishes the effect of that at all. And Loring, talk about him a lot because he's deserved it. I mean, the 25-yard touchdown we saw there, but he also now is the program's all-time leading rusher, almost 4,000 career yards, 3,939. Safe to say, good chance he surpasses that 4K mark this weekend. That's a really exciting deal for him and this offense. The previous record was Ben Sherman, but this is the first playoff win for this team. Not often do you see a first playoff win in this dominant of a fashion, and obviously because it's the first win, we're talking about a second-round playoff game for the first time ever as well for this William Penn team against a friend squad. That is a lot to ask. 6 turnovers, though, forced on the Rams, and they still lost the time of possession. William Penn did, and that's where I get into, like, they weren't dominating the ground game in terms of time of possession because they were chunking off these big-time plays, explosive plays. You lost the time of possession battle even with 6 turnovers and even with scoring 38 points. That might be a first for me. I'm not going to lie. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, but I mean, even with that many turnovers, they're probably flipping short fields to go down and score. So they are able to put up points very, very quickly. I could certainly see how that could be the case, especially with how dominant they were on the ground. So,
Yep, 100%. And moving forward, let's talk about this Evangel team. They had a chance, Matt. They had a really good chance. We're going to take a look at it in a second. But USF, St. Francis, that being the Indiana variety, they outlast Evangel defensive slugfest 13-12. The final from down there in Indiana. And we'll take a look at the missed kick here from Evangel that ultimately sealed the deal. The Valor, they had a chance late in this one. A kick that would have been the go-ahead winner for this squad is wide. And, of course, we know how the rest unfolds. But this is a look at that final kick. Wide. You see the celebration from this Cougars team, man. They outlast Evangel. I'm not going to say it was a chip shot. Definitely would that be a discredit to this kicker and this look. But if you're Evangel, you got to feel really confident about that look, and it goes wide right by, just a hair, seemingly.
Yeah, really unfortunate way for your season to end if you're Evangel. Yeah. But I feel like it kind of overshadows the fact that if you loved defense, this was a phenomenal game. Both defenses absolutely showed up and showed out. When you're holding a guy like Joshua Kolka going below 50% completion percentage, a guy who's known for his accuracy, it's a really good defensive day if you're Evangel. And especially with Evangel's defense ultimately giving them the lead in the third quarter when it was tied at 10-10. They get a safety and it goes to 12-10 before USF in the fourth quarter kicks a field goal to take a 1-point lead. And we saw how that ended for Evangel. But my goodness, certainly not quite what we expected, especially with how Potts and Kolka on both sides of the ball had been operating all season. Now, granted, Potts still had a very large clip, but I feel like 221 yards on 29 completions. That's not, super explosive plays like you'd probably want to be seeing. So really interesting defensive battle there. But ultimately USF survives, and all you need to do is survive to advance. So
that is correct, my friend. That is correct. St. Francis, 226 total yards of offense. That's got to be a low. Didn't go back and dig into the stat book to find it, but I'm going to go here and sit here and say it's probably a low for this team. And if you're Evangel, you dominated the time possession. Again, we go back to this metric that is so typically associated with winning, and we saw just a game ago that maybe might not be the case, but 35 minutes to 25 minutes of possession, and you lose a tough one like this. You only turn the ball over once, too. Time possession and turnover battle are two of the things that typically decide the winners, especially in these playoff-type football games. You're not necessarily doing bad in either of those departments. Neither of these teams rushes for 100 on the day. Not really a whole lot going on in that department. Big-time playmaker Nate Johnson, defensive player of the game, he sacks Potts in the fourth quarter had 7 tackles total, 2.5 on behind the line of scrimmage, and also had a PBU on the day, Nate Johnson. So shout out to him for a big-time performance. But now, if you're St. Francis, my friend, you get the test of a lifetime. How about that, going up to Des Moines?
Yeah, certainly not an easy task, and we'll touch a bit on that later as well. But certainly your offense is going to have to be much more productive than it was in this game if you're going to want to have a shot at number 1. So
Correct, dude. Now let's go down and talk some Florida football and a team that Southeastern that has been, I think, up and down this year and has shown to be competitive with some really good teams, and a Reinhardt team that did not necessarily have the record you typically associate with a postseason contender type of playoff team. But when you go back and look at that record and see who they play, they've played this tough schedule, and they've obviously learned from that because they were very competitive in this one. 24-22, Southeastern, they're moving on. The Fire eke out a pretty close win, 15, number 19. I guess to open it up, man, what'd you see from this one in the Fire?
Yeah, Southeastern, another program, by the way, that we have to shout out for getting their first playoff winning program history, and also topping their single season program record with 9 wins now on the year, which is fantastic for them in the season that they have had, especially being able to take down St. Thomas in the fashion that they did before the playoffs. But yeah, it was a really, really good game for Southeastern once it got rolling. You know, the scripted drive score, like we typically see, and then Southeastern got rolling. But a late attempt from Reinhardt behind Jacques Colbert, the running back for Reinhardt, got them moving pretty quickly. He went 16 carries for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 11.6 yards per carry, ultimately dragging them back into the game by the end of the contest. But ultimately, Southeastern, with a 2-point lead after a failed 2-point conversion, is able to run out the clock on a 9-play drive and secure the win.
That is a big one. You see some of these explosive plays from this Southeastern attack, and again, it's chunk yardage down the play, down the field, taking shots seemingly on every play, whether it's across the middle or down the sidelines. They got guys that get vertical very fast, the Southeastern team does, and we've seen them compete with some of the best inside of the Sun Conference. Talk about a Kaiser matchup here in a little bit, but this team does it in all facets and all phases of the game, and a big part of that was the defensive effort and a big-time record broken here as Ibrahim gets home on 4th down and becomes the single-season Southeastern record breaker, the program record, his 11th sack of 2025 there, a big-time milestone for him and this Southeastern team that, again, Florida football is associated, Matt, with speed and flashiness and big, high-powered offensive output, but let me tell you something. They got a dude, a vanilla gorilla, if you will, inside of that defensive front for the Southeastern team, and he is making noise. He's as disruptive as they get. He's got a great supporting cast around him, but a really big-time individual achievement there for Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. Record-breaking in more ways than one for the Fire, and they ultimately move on, and they're going to see a familiar opponent down the road that they really often run into.
Yes, they definitely will. We'll get into those matchups here very shortly, but let's keep going now and head out west to Helena, Montana, if we're being very specific here. Carroll College, they play host to another Florida team. St. Thomas has got to make the trip up to Carroll and take on the Fighting Saints in a pretty hostile environment. Now, from what I could tell, the atmosphere there maybe a little bit lackluster compared to what's usually going on, but you had the Montana State game, I believe, was also taking place this past weekend, and so I think a vast majority of that population, talking with Braeden, who we had on the show, who had a big-time game, it sounds like a lot of the student body even may have went to that game. Bunch of turncoats over there in Helena. That's crazy. I got to let them know. That's ridiculous. Got to support the boys on their playoff run here, but either way, big time show out or not, they take down St. Thomas 42-35. A slugfest, maybe not a defensive slugfest, but a slugfest nonetheless.
Yeah, it was definitely a gritty game, but there was a lot of points being scored here. Caden Watt for Carroll going 12 for 28, 166 yards and 4 touchdowns and an interception in a really interesting passing stat line, going under 50%, but you're still throwing 4 touchdowns. That'll get it done for sure. And on the ground, Mina going 10 carries for 115 yards and a touchdown, also kind of balancing out the passing and rushing attack for them.
And not to cut you off, man, but how about that Hail Mary that we saw?
Yeah.
I believe that was right before half. That was insane, the tip drill score.
Yeah, absolutely. Being aware, being able to get points on the board in situations like that. And it was ultimately a close game, but Carroll in the third quarter started to pull away. St. Thomas kind of kept pace in that way. But ultimately, Carroll took home the victory 42-35. And the big difference maker, I feel like, in this one for me watching it was that all three interceptions that Carroll ended up getting led to touchdowns. Those are possessions and points that are much more directly in your control when you have turnovers like that. 21 points that you could potentially have gotten back. So certainly a close one. Keely Watson ultimately getting it done through the air, but those three interceptions are definitely going to haunt you.
Yeah. That was big-time performances on both sides of the ball. And the inside of the Frontier, the West Defensive Player of the Year, Braeden Orlandi, he's a guy that we had join us on the show tonight, and he grabs one of those, races down the sideline. That was the first thing I asked him, Matt. I was like, you were in, right? Like, you had to be in. They called him down at the one. Got to watch a little bit of that game as it was going on. But really fun game to watch. A lot of offense, but very timely defense, right? At specific points in this one that went back and forth. And for me, this Carroll squad, the thing about them is, you talked about it with this Kaiser Southeastern team, there's a lot of familiarity in this next round of the playoffs, right? And it could have been even more, but talk about this matchup, this rivalry coming up for these guys. It's going to be very easy to get up for this coming one for the Saints.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now we can talk about some of those matchups.
Let's do it, dude. We got some big-time games, more games than this last week. And we work a little bit backwards in NAIA and D3 football with the bye. But we got big-time matchups this coming weekend. And before we get into any of it, as I pull up the graphic, I messed up the graphic, Matt. I had one of the home and away teams flipped, so I just had to say that first. I believe I had Morningside and College of Idaho flipped. Let me get the deal pulled up here as my Wi-Fi just barely limps along here in Marquette, Michigan. There it is. Yeah, I've got Idaho at Morningside. That's flipped on the bottom, folks at home. So take a look at that. As someone pointed out in the comments for me, apologize. Was up burning the midnight oil making this. But nonetheless, big-time games across the board. Start things off, Grandview, St. Francis, Indiana. Potentially one of the more lopsided games. What do you think? Is that the tail of the tape?
Yeah, certainly from what we've seen from both teams this season, that's what is going to be on display there. Grandview's looked really dominant, especially with Kolka and that St. Francis offense looking, as not high-powered as they usually do. You have to be able to step it up against Grandview, and I just don't think Grandview is going to give them the room to do so, especially with, returning National Player of the Year, probably going to be a two-time National Player of the Year.
Very good
Jackson
chance.
Waring. Like I mentioned, it's tough for Destin Loring to have that conversation when he's in the same division as that guy, right? But there's a reason for that. He's been very good. Grandview is rightfully the number one team in the country right now. And there's no reason for me to believe that they're going to stop rolling anytime soon. But weirder things have happened.
Now, our playoffs, I guess I'm not 100% familiar with the process in terms of the National Player of the Year. Are the playoffs a part of that criteria and a part of that decision-making process, or not necessarily?
Yeah.
That's big. Because you look at his body of work already for Waring, and you look at, obviously, already a great stat line and some great moments and some big-time wins for him because they have been tested, right? You open up the year with that win, a big-time win over, was it Benedictine?
Yeah.
So you open up that big-time win there against a quality opponent. That sets the tone for this season. But I think what we've seen very recently is that playoff Jackson Waring is a different beast. And listening to our good friends over at VSN the other night, I think they hit it on the head, Donnelly did, in terms of the play calling offensively. It's kind of like, okay, we can unleash this beast now. We're not saving this guy for anything. Like, let's get him out there. He's going to tote the rock more than you've seen maybe throughout the course of this season. He might be taking a couple more shots, but I think especially when it comes to the ground game, like nothing is off limits for this Vikings attack, and I think Waring is going to be an increasingly large part of that. We're going to see all the brakes, all the restraints, the training wheels taken right off of this guy, and he's gonna keep riding this bicycle that is the Vikings to off into the sunset here potentially.
Yeah, and we have the sample
That analogy
size
got
to
weirder
prove.
and weirder as I went on. I do acknowledge that.
No, I hear you. Training wheels and all that. National Player of the Year needs training wheels. I hear you.
Yeah, see, there you go. Like, terrible.
But no, I hear what you're saying. The fact that, this guy absolutely rises to the occasion, and you have to give him those opportunities to take advantage of that. We saw it the entirety of last year. I saw it in person at the national championship game last year. Like, he is that guy. So certainly going to be fun to see him as the Grandview's playoff run kicks off.
And then we go a matchup that's got a lot of familiarity. Of course, talked about a Kaiser Southeastern, a 1 o'clock kick on Saturday. They've got a previous meeting. Kaiser came out on top 34-23. This time around, both teams obviously still hot. Southeastern, not maybe a dominant win over that Reinhardt team, but win in advance, you get another shot at the Kaiser squad that has, I say a thorn in the side. I'm going to stick away from the analogy. That seems like the understatement of the year, but been a looming threat and presence over the Southeastern squad.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just with the way it matches up, Southeastern grinded that one out against Reinhardt. Maybe there's a case to be made that playing the week before and kind of getting everything how you want it to be situated beforehand and who's playing what and injuries and sorting all that stuff out a week ahead of time with a game. We've seen that at larger levels of college football where sometimes that can be an advantage against a team that you've seen before and even a team that had a bye in the first round, which both are the case here. Certainly, I would think Kaiser would have the advantage, especially with how their matchup earlier this year went. But the Fire, somebody's got to put them out. So we'll have to see.
Okay, you're beating me in the analogy metaphor department tonight. That's all right. But you talk about another game that's got a lot of common ground. Montana Tech and Carroll, they play again. The difference between these two, of course, is that this big-time rivalry game, Carroll, Montana Tech, that happened back in September. We're talking about a game that's going into mid to late November now, where that Kaiser Southeastern game just took place a couple weeks ago, right? So you're talking about a matchup where these teams are very different, maybe not in terms of personnel, of course, but in terms of where they've been and how weathered they are over the course of this season and how proven. Maybe some guys have stepped up into those roles. This is a multiple month difference. A lot of different games of football have happened between September and now. Is the product going to be any different on Saturday? That's the question.
Yeah, honestly, not entirely sure. I think it's going to be very similar to the first time that they matched up, just because, Frontier Conference is the way it is, super competitive. When Carroll started rolling at the beginning of the year, we kind of looked at that game and we said, okay, that's something we might revisit down the line. And sure enough, here we are in the second round of the playoffs, already crossing that bridge. So it's going to be a really exciting matchup. I'm really pumped, especially with the atmosphere at Montana Tech and just how they've been doing things this season. And Carroll's been surging, and it's a game we've already seen this year, and rivalries and all that other good stuff that goes into it. It's going to be rocking. It's going to be a really fun time. This one will be.
There will be no lack of environment at this one. That will not be part of the conversation.
Correct. Yeah, it's going to be a really fun time. I'm going to have my eyes on this one for sure.
William Penn and Friends takes place this weekend as well, and of course the conversation should shift and be how can William Penn keep up with its rushing attack from Friends. Now, they showed some great prowess in this last game in terms of capitalizing off those turnovers, keeping those short fields and those explosive plays to score at very opportune moments. The other part of it, though, is that this Friends team is allowing like 10 points a game, 58 rush yards per game, and not a whole lot to do on the ground. That's going to be the tough part. The Friends defense, that defensive front, they've given up some pieces in the air, 167 yards through the air per game. Nothing insane, but again, it's going to be the ground game. How can they contain Loring and company on the ground? And if any game is going to be determined between the tackles this week, it's probably this one.
Yeah, we might push like 1,000 rushing yards combined in this game.
That would be insane.
And that's completely fine with me. Pretty much get to see, can anybody's rushing attack match Friends's, because at the moment William Penn's looks to be the best match, or at least one of. You could probably argue, Lindsey Wilson, Campbellsville, that sort of thing. But certainly in that realm of conversation with how William Penn's been doing things and how Loring's been playing. But man, I've said everything I've wanted to say about Friends multiple times this year. I've gushed over them pretty much all season and how they do things and how they look and how they run the ball. It's going to be a really fun contest. It's going to be really fun pound the rock football. And I truthfully think it could be game of the week, but honestly, with the other games we're about to talk about, like, they also are in the conversation.
Yes, correct.
So, but it's going to be a good time regardless. I think just with the way this slate overall is shaping up, it's going to be the most fun week in NAIA playoff football.
Stamp it.
Recent history, just looking at some of these match previews. So
I love it, man. And another one of those games, Benedictine, they're taking on and hosting Campbellsville, a pretty red-hot Tigers team, I will say. And this is a game of some pretty talented duos, some pairs.
Yeah, it's going to be Dooley and Ugorgi, quarterback and running back on one side for Benedictine and Engel, and Trey Bass, who's been the do-it-all guy for Campbellsville this year. Basically going to be those two pairs facing off, and which defense is going to be able to slow down the other's duo first. Pretty much is going to decide how that game goes. But Benedictine, the only thorn in their side this year has been against, the number one team in the country. But otherwise, they've been, the best offense in the entire country by metrics and yardage and all of those numbers for the most part. But Campbellsville has been able to run the ball, pass the ball very effectively. Their offense is very efficient and able to get things done. I'm curious to see how the defenses respond to the others duo. But overall, it's just going to be, this is another one that you could circle it for game of the week potentially. It's going to be an absolute blast.
Boom.
Should be a shootout, which naturally means it's going to be 17-14 or something like that, because that's just how it goes. But on paper, this should be a really fun offensive battle.
It should, and one that honestly might be trending in the opposite direction. We got a Marion team hosting Dort, a Dort defense that obviously has been red hot. The big challenge for them is red hot in a way, in that it's Ginger running back, the man Keegan LaBelle. He has been a dog for this Marion attack, almost 1,200 yards in the year, over 20 touchdowns on the ground, is certainly the catalyst for this offense. But can he get it going early against a Dort team and keep the ball in the hands of this Knight squad?
Yeah, and Keegan LaBelle was the guy we talked about in the preseason as somebody who, if you see Marion deep in the postseason as a top team getting a bye, it's probably off the back of this guy. And sure enough, he's been that guy for them. The only blunder on the season being against a really good Division II Indy team, which, how are they doing, by the way?
Let me tell you something, Matt. They look damn good. UND looks really good. They were in the playoffs this last weekend. They had a rematch with Truman State, which is in their conference. Dumb. To be honest with you, don't know how Truman got into the dance. Different conversation. Anyways, playoff game. They're up 30 at halftime. They go on to roll to a 50-something to 12 victory. That UND team, Gavin Sukup, the quarterback over there, that's a legit contender type program. Didn't know, obviously, early in the season, you have no idea how things are going to pan out. The monkey off the back of UND is that they've struggled out of conference, GLVC. They get a big chance to prove it this coming week against Mankato, but enough of my D2 talk. Long way to say, UND, legit contender. That's not a bad stain on this record at all.
Yeah, and with the sample we've seen in NAIA play, certainly, Marion has left pretty much everybody behind them defeated. So done an absolutely fantastic job on their end in LaBelle. But Dort's defense has been up to the challenge this year. They're a very high motor defense most of the time, and they usually put up decent numbers, but it's all clicking in all of the right ways. The metrics really like them. The yardage that they're putting up, or I should say not allowing, has been really impressive this year. So
you got Lindsey Wilson, Indiana Wesleyan, this one taking place in Kentucky. And honestly, kind of surprising this one. If you told me Indiana Wesleyan would be traveling for this one or earlier in the season, would have been a little bit surprised. Obviously, we've seen how that's unfolded throughout the course of this season. Really high-powered offensive attack here from Wesleyan that maybe has changed its identity a little bit over the course of this season with the quarterback play that we've seen from the Wildcats.
Yeah, absolutely. And Indiana Wesleyan has been really efficient and really good on offense, but it's going to be interesting to see other style clashes against Lindsey Wilson, who, they've been relying on Saunders for the most part this season. Yeah, absolute dog. Has been the do-it-all guy for them, another guy in the National Player of the Year conversation, certainly with some of the other names we've mentioned so far. And we love, the all-run, all-pass matchups, but a good running the ball team versus a good passing the ball team makes for really good football, balanced football. And we like to see that. Both these defenses are really stout. Certainly, Lindsey Wilson has the advantage defensively, so it's going to come down to, how does Lindsey Wilson deal with the pass attack of Indiana Wesleyan? But overall, going to be a really fun one here as well.
And then finally, College of Idaho, Morningside is on the road, shipping up to Idaho. And again, you talk about quarterbacks. Zach's certainly at the forefront of that conversation for this Morningside team, but a lot more than QB play going into this one, the 8 and 9 seed matchup.
Yeah, this one I'm super excited for this one. One, because Morningside usually isn't traveling for these games.
Correct.
So it's interesting to see them going up to Idaho for this one. But also not just the style differences, but College of Idaho's defense has been super, super good this year against a really, potent Morningside offensive attack. that we've seen have its sputters along the way this year in ways we might not have before in previous seasons. Now, not to say that they're not good. Their offense is still one of the best in the entire country. Do not get it twisted. But certainly they've looked more mortal in recency than maybe years prior. So it's going to be really interesting to see, in College of Idaho's the number 8 team still feels like a team that's not being talked about a lot. They've quietly stuck up the top 25. They've quietly been in contention. When we talk about the frontier, we've been talking a lot more about Montana Tech, about Carroll, about Montana Western seasons, and their early season woes were certainly bigger points of conversation. But College of Idaho's just crept up and kept winning and done it at a really efficient rate. Their defense has been phenomenal this season, top 5 in pretty much all metrics. So
the Yotes hosting this weekend, like the graphic says, those are the matchups for the championship series this coming Saturday on the 29th. A lot of big-time games that will determine the future playoff picture and eventual national champion at the NAIA level. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you very much, man. That was really good stuff. Glad that we get to watch some really good NAIA football. And unlike our Division III counterparts, I haven't really seen many live stream issues, which is really nice. We actually get to watch the games.
That's
Don't know
good.
if you saw any of that, but D3 football.
No, I didn't.
Tough weekend with ESPN Plus. You had a couple games that didn't even get up and going.
Yeah, shout out Urban Edge Network, free plug. There you go.
Shout out. Got their act together. Love to see that. Need that for NAIA football. Very easy to access all that stuff. So definitely shout out the UEN guys.
Yeah.
Sweet. But Matt, thank you very much, man. Have a good rest of your night.
Yeah, you too, bro. Appreciate it.
Yep. I see you.
See ya.